For a game that everyone's played, and sells millions of copies a year, Monopoly is a surprisingly terrible game. In any given game of Monopoly, you not only roll the dice countless times and take a bunch of cards from the random pools in the community chest and chance decks, but you also have to contend with other players messing up your strategy or coming into insane windfalls of cash by sheer dumb chance. Monopoly's randomness completely dictates who wins and who loses, and as a result it's very frustrating to play and is generally relegated to the bottom tier of any and all board game rankings. In fact, Monopoly's original iteration, the Landlord's game, which was developed by Elizabeth Magie, was intended to feel arbitrary and rage-inducing to make a point about the inherent unfairness of, you guessed it, monopolies. Randomness has blighted more modern games as well. Have you ever played a roguelike or survival game with randomly generated maps and found that, just by pure chance, you've been put in a virtually unwinnable situation through bullshit enemy spawns or a shortage of critical resources that leaves you to slowly starve to death? In these sorts of situations, the randomness isn't even really a surprise. Your inevitable loss was generated long before you even started playing. Of all the rage-inducing systems and tools that game designers use, randomness is among the most controversial. People rightly rail against loot boxes, which use frustration to manipulate us into spending cash, random mechanics like tripping in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, which makes competitive play almost impossible, and random generation of items and maps as a lazy alternative to tailor-made content. Some people, most notably the kind of nerd that still plays chess when Chess 2 has been out for years, think the randomness in games should be gotten rid of entirely. But I actually disagree. Though RNG is responsible for some of gaming's least fun experiences, it's also crucial for creating some of its best. Roguelikes, strategy games, RPGs and a bunch of other genres just wouldn't be possible if randomness weren't injecting a little bit of chaos in to keep us on our toes. Well-designed randomness can give us an infinite variety of situations to hone our skills and to help us tell almost completely emergent stories with moments of crushing failure followed by against the odds triumph. Believe it or not, randomness can even improve the competitive viability of games if used correctly. But what actually separates good randomness from bad randomness? It's just numbers at the end of the day, right? Well, it's actually quite simple. Note that in both of the examples I used about 2 minutes ago, as well as in the stereotypical RNG mechanics, randomness is frustrating either because you can't see it coming, or because you can't do anything about it. And I think that this is at the heart of the issue. Good randomness includes some degree of player agency, either giving you the ability to manipulate the randomness beforehand, or meaningfully respond to the outcome. Before I go in depth, let's quickly outline the different kinds of randomness, terms I've shamelessly stolen from Jeff Engelstein of Ludology. This guy coined a lot of the vernacular I'm going to be using today, and basically everyone who talks about randomness and game design on the internet is paraphrasing either his talks or his podcast. First, we have input randomness, which is randomness that occurs before you make a decision, like procedural generation of maps or randomly generated daily quest objectives in an MMO. If it's already happened before you get to do anything, it's probably input randomness. And second is output randomness, which occurs after you make a decision. This will be stuff like chances to hits or most loot systems. As you might expect, it's the opposite. If it happens in response to you doing something, it's output randomness. Then, added to those sensible and well thought out categories, we've got my haphazardly cobbled together definitions for controllable randomness, which is randomness that you can manipulate the result of, and reactable randomness, which is randomness that you can meaningfully respond to. I think these two are important to quantify, because they define our relationship with randomness in a subjective sense relevant to moment-to-moment gameplay, which offers a different perspective than the distant game designy lens of input and output, which don't always make sense on a granular level, but I'll get back to that. Let's start with reactable input randomness, because it's got the simplest psychology behind it. By randomizing things only before the player has a chance to interact with them, games are able to set up varied states of play and avoid creating frustrating surprises. Into the Breach is a game that feels incredibly fair, because although it's got a lot of randomness, from enemy spawns to map layouts to which items you'll find in the shops, it's all up front, and your decision making has no such grey areas. All the randomness is there to do is give your decisions an interesting context, and leave you to respond to the situation in whichever way you see fit. Games of strategy and planning are at their most fun when the player is able to plot a path to victory and then play out their intended solution, without needing to worry about part of their strategy suddenly falling apart or not having any options at all. To this end, Into the Breach is actually a little bit cheeky. In order to ensure that as many of its game states as possible are actually solvable, the game places enemies in particular places and throttles the amount that can spawn or attack at any given time, so as to prevent the annoying possibility of an alien destroying something and you literally not being able to do anything about it. By generating maps or levels too randomly, it's possible that players will end up being forced into boring or frustrating game states purely by dint of how the world is set up. Many strategy games can leave players at a massive disadvantage from turn 1 by not giving them access to crucial resources, and as I mentioned earlier, many survival games necessitate blind wandering just to find the resources you need to get started. In order to fix this, developers could design the maps by hand and remove the random element of exploration entirely, and this works very well in games like Subnautica, but only for the first playthrough. If every map was fixed and perfectly balanced in 4X's like Civilization, players would eventually be able to optimize all the fun out of expanding and constructing the right buildings at the right time very easily, and there'd be no incentive for players to trade or go to war because they'd already have everything they need. Instead, the best solution for fun maps is to randomize within limits. Terraria is a great example here. It generates mostly random maps, but positions more difficult biomes like the jungle or the dungeon far away, and never generates the infectious corruption or crimson too close to the spawn. This gives players the fun of exploring into mysterious terrain every time, but without overwhelming them before they've gotten a proper sword, or allowing skilled players to skip a bunch of progression without putting the work in. In the same vein, strategy games usually give players an equal amount of resources in their starting location, but never the same ones, meaning players will have to plan around shortages or deal with other players in order to get what they want, which is much more fun and interactive than sitting in a corner ticking off boxes on your optimized build order. Input randomness is also really helpful for games that test a player's skill and intellect, and this is where controllable input randomness comes in really handy. See, most competitive games don't have the absurd number of possible game states that, say, chess does, and so they need some degree of input randomness to vary things up and keep players on their toes. However, players also need some way to control this randomness and keep it within acceptable limits in order for competitive play to flourish. For example, in card games like Rummy, Crazy Eights, or Whist, the quality of your opening hand correlates massively with your likelihood of winning. And while some games can create some interesting decision making out of this limitation, like poker, even they are filled with dud hands or lucky insta-win flushes. More modern card games, most notably those from the Magic the Gathering lineage like Hearthstone or my personal favourite Eternal, fix this to some degree by giving players the ability to build their own deck of cards. Now, rather than your initial decision space being totally random, players are able to assemble their pool of cards, as well as their overall strategy beforehand, turning simple RNG into something with a strong skill testing element. These games are, of course, still incredibly random, but giving players some say in what form that randomness ends up taking goes a long way towards cutting out a lot of the frustration of an obvious loss, because you know that you can probably improve your chances by building a better deck. Hidden role games like Secret Hitler also benefit from giving players the ability to control input randomness. Rather than each player's allegiance being determined separately, which could lead to groups of all bad guys or all good guys, good hidden role games let players choose a fixed number of bad guy roles, which then get distributed randomly, usually with hidden cards, leading to a much fairer game with much more interesting stakes. More modern styles of games benefit from controllable input randomness too. Warframe, a third-person shooter / grinding simulator, has a massive reliance on farming randomly spawned materials. Materials in Warframe spawn in procedurally generated maps for you to find and collect, but if it were possible for every map to be generated with any material, it would be really hard to find the one you actually want. So, quite cleverly, the devs gave each planet in the game its own, much more streamlined loot table, and let players manipulate the map gen by choosing which one they want to go to. That means, in order to get Plastids, for example, you'll need to go to Saturn, Phobos, Pluto, Eris, or Planet Bum, giving players a great reason to shake up the scenery every now and again, as well as making finding specific items that much easier. Of the two kinds of randomness, input is the less dynamic of the two, and it mostly serves to set up the parameters of the game before leaving players to get on with the rest. When input randomness works, it creates near infinite variety, but doesn't interfere with skill testing elements or strategic decision making, making it perfect for mastery driven or competitive titles. On the flip side, output randomness is all about constant change. By having the randomness take place after you've made a decision, players are forced to surrender a large portion of their own agency to a faceless, uncaring random number generator. As you might expect, this can cause a lot of problems. Have you ever been in a situation in an RPG where you've missed a crucial attack right at the last moment and gotten a game over? Yeah, that was the bad side of output randomness at work. But with a few small changes, punitive output randomness can be transformed into a great way to test players' skills of improvisation and risk management, as well as serve as a story generator for tales of tense recoveries and unlikely victories. In fact, it's this kind of randomness that all the best role-playing games rely on. And by that I mean Dungeons and Dragons, not Final Fantasy. With a good dungeon master, or in the case of video games, a talented development team, even not getting the dice roll result you wanted can still lead to interesting storytelling opportunities. One of the best, more recent video game examples of this is in Disco Elysium, where both successful and failed skill checks can have a massive impact on the story. In my first playthrough, I originally wanted to play as a smooth, ladies' man detective, but after poor dice rolls caused me to royally screw up my very first attempt at doing just that, I then swore off women for good. Them dames are nothing but trouble, see? Later on, I completely lucked out on a conceptualization roll and ended up discovering spooky facts about the true nature of reality. Naturally, I put 2 and 2 together and spent the rest of the game role-playing as someone who thought that women were the cause of the coming apocalypse that is definitely for reals happening. A unique RP opportunity that never would have happened without some randomly driven inspiration. Deck-building roguelikes like Slay the Spire or One Step from Eden achieve the same sort of appeal on a more mechanical level. While these games are built around synergies and optimizing your deck of cards, you're never going to be able to get exactly what you want. The challenge of the game comes from improvising around what cards and passives you do get to create interesting emergent synergies on the fly. In One Step from Eden, a bullet hell grid-based roguelike RPG, it's Mega Man Battle Network for grown-ups. I ended up getting a bunch of abilities that hit a bunch of times, but didn't really synergize together. That all changed when I spotted some abilities that increase my spell power, which adds 1 damage to each hit of a spell. I'm sure you can see where this is going. It wasn't long before I quintupled my damage output and was rinsing bosses in no time at all, thanks to my super killing machine gun spells. Reacting to randomness can create brilliant twists and turns that you can't see coming, but it's hard to turn this approach into something that feels like it requires actual planning. That's where controllable output randomness comes in. My beloved XCOM is a game that's famous for its brutal output randomness. A missed 80% shot can lead to a soldier you've spent ages developing getting filled full of lasers. But there's more to the game than hoping you don't get screwed by RNG. Thanks to the work of some clever developers, XCOM retains a lot of strategic depth by pitting players against RNG and allowing them to manipulate it. A large part of successful XCOM play is the ability for players to twist the odds in their favour and push their luck just far enough to win. Risk management is just as important a tactical skill as being able to calculate moves in advance. Playing too safe in XCOM by sticking to high cover and only taking high percentage shots will mean you'll get overwhelmed very quickly. Similarly, going miles out of your way to chase an incredibly unlikely single action multi-kill is more often than not going to lead to your troops becoming chrysalid food. The trick is knowing when to push your luck and when to hold back. Flanking enemies gives a substantial aim boost but can leave you out of position. Overwatch is more likely to hit than a shot into high cover, but it fails if an enemy doesn't move. XCOM sees you making loads of these tiny micro decisions every turn to maximise your chances based on constantly shifting parameters. Also something that XCOM players have to consider is knowing when to eliminate randomness entirely. Grenades and melee attacks, both of which come with some pretty hefty restrictions, can offer either guaranteed damage or can change both allied and enemy hit chances, and knowing when and where to alter randomness is often much more powerful than simply relying on getting lucky because you're in control. And really, that's just as true for developers as it is for players. Randomness is an incredibly powerful tool in the game designer's arsenal, but regardless of which type of randomness you use, or how you choose to let players interact with it, randomness needs to be constrained, and to ultimately serve the player experience. Sometimes that means altering the variance for random outcomes such that it only helps the player, other times that means using it to impede them in order to make a point, and in a few specific scenarios, players might even need to be lied to about the random chances in their game to make the experience more fun. Critical strikes in Dota, for example, are weighted pseudo-randomly, meaning that every time you don't get a critical, the chance you will get one is increased. This is absolutely not how the real maths should work, but it instinctively feels right to our rubbish brains, and ends up being much more fun than going ages without getting a critical hit at all. This is a change that also lowers the variance of the mechanic, helping competitive players too. Even terms like input and output randomness don't really work when viewed from a subjective lens. I said card drawing at the start of your turn was input randomness, but you could argue it's actually the output randomness resulting from decisions you made during deck building. Same for accuracy in XCOM. You missing your shot could actually just be input randomness informing your decisions for the next turn. Randomness is a very complicated subject, and it's tempting for developers to let it run amok. After all, as we can see in loot boxes or games with bad randomness like Monopoly, even horrendously imbalanced games with no player agency can still manage to trip our dopamine receptors and be fun occasionally. But in order to craft something more than a simple Skinner box, or a boring algorithm that spits out unfun levels, developers need to consider the player's role in the experience, and players also need to gain a bit of perspective. Randomness is sort of inherently unfair, but just because something is uncertain, that doesn't mean that it can't be skill testing or isn't worth playing. The trick to figuring out whether a game has good or bad randomness isn't to go on your gut emotional response, because the fact that randomness often doesn't work in the player's favour is exactly why it's so powerful. Instead, we need to keep a sense of objectivity and see if that little bit of uncertainty made the game more fun, tactical, or emotionally resonant in the long run. Only by understanding the nuances of our relationship with chance will we be able to clear its bad name, as well as know which kinds of randomness to avoid. Basically what I'm saying is that there's about a 60% chance that randomness isn't bullshit and you're just bad at video games, and there's 2-to-1 odds of me telling the truth or not there. And you can only know if I've been telling the truth after you've liked, commented and subscribed, but only if your like isn't even enough. Hello, hi, how are you? Thank you for watching. Apologies for this video coming out a little bit later than usual. I've been working on a bigger project that just happened to eat up a bunch more of my time than I thought it would. My bad. As for my recommendation for a cool YouTube thing you should maybe check out, I usually recommend stuff from channels that are smaller than mine, but this one's pretty close. I recently watched Barry Kramer's A Good Enough Summary of Kingdom Hearts, and despite having played a few of the games, I was amazed by how little of the story I actually understood, insofar as Kingdom Hearts' story can be comprehended by the minds of mere mortals, of course. It's very fun, it's got some cute animations. You should go and watch it if that sounds interesting. But, of course, the real stars of the show are my wonderful patrons. If you want to support the channel in this era where YouTube ad revenue is plummeting like a rock, then you can do it via Patreon. There's a link in the description and in the comments. In return, you'll get a little look behind the scenes with update videos, cut bits from the script, and maybe, perhaps, a sneak peek at what I've got planned for the 200 subs video. Ooh! Also, if you donate $10 a month, you'll get your name read out at the end of the video, like these wonderful people, who are Alex Deloch, Alexander Kramer, Asaran, Aula94, Baxter Heel, Big Chess, Bodhi, Brian Otariani, Daniel Medjes, David Duatrascu, Dirk Jan Karambeld, Doodlehog, Evie, Ibathon, Jordan, Joshua Binswanger, Kai Gillespie, Lee Berman, Lucas Slack, Lunar Eagle 1996, Mace Window 54, Max Filipov, Michael Kunk, Mr. T with some tea, Patrick Romberg, Philby the Bilby, Prospero, Ray's Dad, Samuel Vanderplatz, Sheldon Hearn, Steve Riley, Strateger in Ultima, and Chow. Okay, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and I will see you around. Bye! Secrets have been a crucial part of video game design since basically the start of video games. The first ever gaming Easter egg, and the coiner of the term, was found in the Atari game Adventure, and involved picking up this tiny pixel, yep, that little guy right there, taking it to a specific spot, and then activating it to see the name of the lead dev, who otherwise wasn't going to be credited. In the Batman Arkham games, the developers over at Rocksteady always left sneaky clues as to the next game in the trilogy. A secret room behind a destructible wall in Quincy Sharp's office hints at the release of Arkham City, and playing that game while your console or PC's internal date is set to December 13th, 2004, the day Rocksteady was founded, gives you a spooky hint about the yet-to-be-released Arkham Knight story from D-list villain Calendar Man.
Days were the secret, Batman. The end of days is coming.
And more recently, in Apex Legends, finding and shooting all these adorable Nessie plushies scattered around the King's Canyon map will summon a giant life-size one from the ocean, which more than makes up for the fact that you almost certainly lost the game trying to pull this off. Needless to say, searching for Easter eggs and hidden secrets within games is great fun. But this game design trend is more than a source of cool trivia and stealthy marketing. The fun of hunting for hidden things is a crucial component to the appeal of some beloved genres, and has a bunch of wider applications in game design as a whole. Metroidvanias wouldn't work at all without a world full of goodies to sniff out, platformers use secrets to push players into mastering each level, and even battle royales like Fortnite use a constantly changing selection of secret fun things to keep you playing and discussing the game. But before we get started, we should probably agree on what a secret actually is. And by that I mean I'm going to tell you what I think one is. An easy, broad definition of a video game secret is that it's a thing in a game that's hidden, obscured, or requires some sort of extra effort beyond what's normally required to beat the game to access. These coins, or this fire flower in Mario, not a secret. this hidden room filled with coins, and this one up you got to do some tricky platforming to get your hands on, they are secrets. Get the difference? Okay. But that begs the question, what makes a good secret? Because it'll be very easy for a developer to just hide a secret thing in a completely random, totally obscure place and make it impossible to find, but that doesn't exactly make it fun or enrich the gameplay experience, does it? I think, contrary to what might appear to be common sense, the most important thing about secrets is that they're meant to be found. And the real value of adding them to a game is in players seeking them out, not necessarily the find itself. You might think that's a typically Architect of Games wishy-washy answer, but let me explain myself. That impulse to scour a game for something you've been told you're not supposed to find, but actually are, can be used in a variety of important ways, and not just for expert players. Secrets can be used to help newbies start their journey, as well as give experienced players something to do once they've mastered everything else. Take the litany of upgrades you find lying around in Metroidvania games, for example. Stuff like the hidden upgrade gears in SteamWorld Dig 2 or the mask shards in Hollow Knight. A lot of these goodies are really quite easy to spot, you just can't get them right away. This means that they end up sticking in your mind and you can come back to pick them up once you've got the right upgrade. This little gameplay loop of finding a secret and then coming back to it once you can actually acquire the damn thing is an incredibly useful tool in the game designer's arsenal, because it encourages players to build up a mental map of the area they're supposed to be exploring and then re-exploring. This cool half-pipe in the opening areas of Metroid Prime isn't just a striking bit of level geometry, it also hides a missile upgrade that observant players will spot but won't be able to get. This initial frustration, plus the fun of going back to the Chozo ruins and grabbing it once you've got the boost ball, cements the place in your memory, and acts as a clever teaching moment to remind players to be aware of half-pipe shaped structures elsewhere in the world, because they probably hide secrets as well. We tend to think of secrets exclusively in the terms of big, fun Easter eggs that make for great top 10 lists, but smaller, easier ones are a great way to guide players and subtly teach them how you want them to play. Uncovering lambda caches in Half-Life 2, secret rooms in Doom, or tucked away and often glitchy ammo crates in Halo aren't particularly challenging, but encourage players to keep their eyes open and explore off the beaten path. I like to call these kinds of secrets guidance secrets, because while they are hidden, they're actually pretty easy to find and are mostly used to teach players. Most people are savvy enough to tune out obvious tutorial messaging, but the thrill of finding something hidden, something surprising, can communicate a lesson and offer an incentive to find more very effectively. In that's 6, okay? The player is introduced to shiny trinkets, the game's optional collectibles, in the room Trench Warfare. But, if you're good at exploring, or are just bad at the game like I am, you can actually find a trinket a bit earlier in the room It's a Secret to Nobody, accessible by missing the jump in the atmospheric filtering unit. This little secret area not only gives players a hands-on exploration experience, but it also tells them that falling off the bottom of the screen isn't lethal, like in most other platformers. Of course, there's a clue in the name It's a Secret to Nobody, beyond the Zelda reference. Most players are going to find that trinket before the tutorial, but doing so gives them an awesome feeling like they've got one up on the game, and chasing that feeling will drive them to hunt down the other 18 trinkets. Using secret hunting to guide players towards getting better at the game works for newbies, but if you just handed out freebies forever, then you wouldn't be making the most of your secrets. Another important way of approaching them is to consider that secrets can also be a great way to help players modulate the game's difficulty. The hidden quest for the Lord of the Mountain in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a fantastic opportunity for experienced players to test their knowledge and understanding of the world. New players will dismiss this glowy green light as just another weird part of Hyrule they don't understand, and can have fun with the more obvious content until they're ready. But experienced adventurers who've mapped out Hyrule and understand how the various systems interlock will be able to track the source of the light down to Satori Mountain, named after Mr. Iwata, rest in peace, make the trek up to the Lord's Lair during the dangerous nighttime, and will have the experience required to tame him. As a reward for finding the secret, they get a cool looking mount with infinite stamina, who is a perfect companion for journeying to the farthest corners of the world to hoover up those last few shrines. Secrets also reward repeat playthroughs. In Noita, the spell-slinging, powder-flinging roguelike, new players will either miss, or get scared off by, this massive lava lake in the first level. But advanced players will know how to cross it, and will be rewarded by a special secret upgrade as well as a super fast shortcut down to a later level. By having secrets represent optional challenges, designers can allow players to customize their experience and create multiple possible levels upon which the game can be enjoyed. New players, or those just looking for an easy playthrough, aren't going to be interested in super hard optional challenges, and it will probably spoil their experience if they ran into unavoidable ultra hard stuff before they were ready. Therefore, it's important to hide or gate secrets which contain a test of mastery such that only players up to the challenge need apply. In Dark Souls 2, most of the hardest bosses are optional secret fights, and can be found within hidden areas in the DLCs or as the reward for completing long, esoteric questlines, like in the case of Aldia or the Dark Lurker. Only players actively looking for a challenge are going to bother with getting to these areas, and they'll hopefully relish the challenge these secret places have to offer, unless it's the horrible Shadow Reindeer from the DLC, in which case they can go to hell. Players looking to test their mastery will still need a bit of reinforcement to encourage them to delve into the deepest layers of the game. Many games reward the completion or collection of secrets with new content that has a higher skill ceiling or requires advanced mechanical know-how. Bayonetta 2's Take Misakuchi, Big Hammer, sorry about the terrible pronunciation, requires doing a fair bit of exploring and optional fights to get your hands on. Unlike the default guns, which are fast and agile, the hammer is slow but powerful, and can only really shine in the hands of an expert who can read enemy attack patterns and knows when to strike. If a new player tried using the big hammer, chances are they die very quickly. But for someone on their journey to mastery, not only is it a fun reward, but only they will be able to fully understand and appreciate its use. And that brings me neatly on to the final and most important rule of a good secret, that they've got to make the player feel special. All this time I've been going on about secrets that, give or take a few examples, you as a player are more or less intended to find through normal gameplay, and this is a completely valid approach to secret design. But what about those big, flashy, elusive secrets that I was going on about at the start of the video? What's so special about them? Well, it's because they're exclusive. Secrets like Spelunky's Eggplant Run take a complete and total intimacy with the game to pull off. For those who don't know, Spelunky is a really hard roguelike platformer. It's tough enough to beat normally, let alone doing a playthrough where you collect all the secret Egyptian artifacts, unlock the secret hell level, and fight the secret final boss. But there's one more challenge for truly dedicated players. When you sacrifice a present to Kali the Blood Goddess, she gives you an eggplant, or an aubergine if you're civilized. This thing is pretty much useless, and splats if you drop it. But if you manage to bring it all the way to King Yama down in Hell, which requires total mastery of all Spelunky's mechanics, including the fiddly hired hands, you get to transform him into an eggplant and pretty much skip the fight. A journey which is, of course, way harder than just playing normally and fighting him legit. This almost joke is a special little moment shared between you and the developer. To truly appreciate it, you need a level of love for the game on par with that of Derek Hughes, and it's a final little capstone to say, well done, you did it. These sorts of high-level prestige secrets don't really need to give players help like guidance secrets, or extra content as an incentive to keep playing like mastery secrets, because if you like the game enough to pursue these bad boys, then simply getting acknowledged for your achievement by the developers is reward enough. Fairs is actually a really great example of all three types of secret in one. Oh, by the way, there are some spoilers for Fairs coming up, obviously, so if you don't want to hear them, skip to this timestamp, okay? The yellow cubes require a bit of dimension flipping, but are generally easy to find and are all you need to finish the game. Blue anti-cubes require some riddle solving and mastery of the game's obscure language, and are really for more advanced players. In return for getting all of them, expert Fez players get to see the real ending. Finally, you've got the red cubes, which, true to form, don't really do much of anything. Each one of these requires incredibly in-depth effort to find, and back in the day, some of them took the entire internet working as a team to decipher. Seriously, these things are nuts. The black monolith puzzle was so fiendish that it took an entire team of players not to solve it, because that was too hard, but to brute force it, and to try and work out a hypothetical reasoning for the solution after the fact, which involves the creator Phil Fisher's love for 2001: A Space Odyssey and some insanity involving the game's Xbox Live release date. Because only the most dedicated players are going to be going after the red cubes, all they need as a reward is prestige, represented in the cubes forming a lovely image of a heart when you put them all together. Fez is a game all about uncovering hidden layers, or I guess, sides, and it's possible that many people have beaten the game without ever realising that the red cubes even exist, and that's what makes them so special. To collect one is a mark of honour, and collecting them all shows that you loved Fez so much that you were willing to find and complete literally everything the game had to offer. That's why I think the answer to what makes a good secret has to come down to not how well it's hidden, or what reward it unlocks, but the appreciation of a game you've got to have in order to seek them out in the first place. A developer putting little jokes, nods and optional things into the game, either to help you, test you, or praise you for dedicating time to it, shows an understanding of the different ways people are going to play their game. Undertale has a secret storyline and bosses because Toby Fox knew players would try to murder everything. Rockstar put their infamous "there are no Easter eggs here, go away" sign on top of this bridge because they knew players would try to get out of bounds with the jetpack. And the Stanley Parable has a secret ending involving the essence of divine art, only accessible if you play a dumb minigame for 4 hours, because the developers knew dedicated, stupid, dumb people with too much time on their hands would seek it out if it was there. Secrets are an expression of the mutual appreciation for a game shared by developer and player, and there's no better example of that than in Shadow of the Colossus. For years, the Shadow of the Colossus community scoured the game for a legendary final secret rumoured to still be in the game. Their hunt became so massive that the developers took notice, and added a special Easter egg just for them in the remaster for the PS4, the 79 Steps to Enlightenment in recognition of their dedication and love for the game, even going so far as to thank one of the main secret finders, Nomad Colossus, by name in the credits. And doesn't that say it all? Whether they give us something useful, interesting, or just a congratulations, we find secret hunting fun because it feels like we're getting more out of a game than simply a surface level look. By going off the beaten path, challenging our knowledge and skill at a game, or even using our knowledge of the underlying rules to try and break them, we're engaging with the game on a deeper level. And ultimately, that's probably what the designers wanted all along. Good secrets just encourage us to continue on that journey. And in that grand tradition, if you can decode this super secret message, you'll get a super secret surprise Easter egg. Ooh. It's totally going to be worth it. Trust me. What possible reason could I have to lie to you? Anyway, before you do that, let's get started with our usual wrap-up where I tell you what cool, content-creating geniuses you should be watching instead of me. This time, it's Jacob Geller, who made a fantastic video you've probably seen hanging around in your sidebar about that Shadow of the Colossus secret I was on about earlier. He goes incredibly in depth and there's even a cool moral at the end. It's fantastic stuff and you should go and watch it. And of course, if you'd like to support my work, you could become one of my fantastic patrons, who are the sole reason why you're not seeing me do an advert for Raid Shadow Legends right now. If you'd like to help support free, independent games media, then please consider pledging some cash, like my top tier supporters, who are Alex Deloach, Asaran, Alno94, Baxter Heel, Big Chess, Brian Notariani, Calvin Han, Daniel Medjes, David Dumitrascu, Dirk Jan Karrenbeld, Doodlehog, Evie, Ibathon, Jesse Ryan, Joshua Binswanger, Lee Berman, Lucas Slack, Lunar Eagle 1996, Mace Window 54, Max Filipov, Mr. T with some tea, Patrick Romberg, Philby the Bilby, Prospero, Ray's Dad, Samuel Vanderplatz, Strateger in Ultima, Yaron Miron, Zach Schuster, and Chow. Thank you to all those people, and to you for watching. And as a special reward for watching all the way to the end, I will tell you the passcode for the Visionaire cipher I posted earlier, and that is SECRET. SECRET. Have fun! Bye!
But it felt like I had to do this before I went in, so I didn't bother. Here we have a world event quest that will not start. It's right here. It's called Census Violence. You can fast travel and join it, but I'm already here, and yeah, it won't work. It just will not start. This happened a fair amount. I think there were quite a few quests in the game that are bugged out like this, or they won't even start. It's what I mentioned in the video before, that it's hard to tell if there's supposed to be something working here, so it might be even more bugs than we realize. This is one of the more interesting world event quests that I thought, because it's in an interesting location. So you're supposed to kill this thing, the Strangler Heart. Now, you may have missed it here, but that guy just did a hit so hard that it killed it from 100% all the way down to 0, and I think that's bugged out the quest and we can't complete it now, because he hit it so hard that like the server can't even react to this thing being dead already, so we can't complete this quest. And in the end I just had to leave, and I never got to see what this quest was, which is a shame because it looks really interesting with this plane overhead completely claimed by the Strangler Vines. This one is another world event quest that wouldn't start, so I think it's a horde of Yaoguai that Mandalore and I wanted to fight. Yep, and there were none there, and of course we made a lot of jokes that, of course they're just all invisible bears. This is a quest for the Enclave that would spawn a bunch of super mutants that weren't hostile to me. They were friendly until I went over and hit them. That was odd. All these friendly super mutants that are attacking the robots that I'm trying to save for the Enclave. Yeah, go figure that one out. This is one of the worst bugs in the game because it's for a main quest and you need to do this in order to get to the end of the narrative. This is one of the more extreme, or maybe even the most extreme glitch that I found in the game involving quests. So in order to get into this area, you have to get through this little building to get into the courtyard. You have to use a holotape, I think it's the master holotape, and it's given to you when you follow the quest line of a woman in a bunker nearby from the Free States to override all the security in this area so you can get in and you can finish the quest that she started. This won't work. It won't even load. It won't even begin to try to work. And the reason why that I didn't figure out until later is that if you have too many holotapes in your inventory, you can't use new ones that you pick up because it just bugged it out. So instead of figuring this out right away, I actually jumped up onto the terminal, went on the roof, and got into the courtyard. And I just skipped this and I thought, okay, I've circumvented it, I've fixed it. But then you get into here and there's another computer terminal that needs this same master holotape that we'll see right now. Of course, there was no bypassing this time. I couldn't climb on this computer to get the data that I needed from the computer terminal. So I was shut out of luck, and I thought, oh, I wasn't going to be able to finish the quest. And a little part of me was happy. It's like, oh, now I can justify that I didn't finish the quest for the video. But I Googled it, and I found out that this is a fairly common problem, and you need to drop all of the rest of your holotapes in your inventory that you have, except for the ones that are just for quests that you can't drop. And for whatever reason, this makes it work. So that's what I did. I dropped every single holotape that I could onto the floor, and you can see me doing it now. It was very tedious. And there's the master holotape that I need to put into the computer. And once I was done with this, you know, any minute now, when we're done, can't drop keys. They're the Overseer's logs that you can't drop either. I think I had maybe 15 or so holotapes in my inventory at the end of this. Also, every other terminal that had this problem, every other terminal after this also needed this requirement for it to work. But thankfully, this was one of the final holotapes that I needed for the quest. This was one of the last ones I did when I was playing. So now it works, and I can go to the computer terminal, and I can use the master holotape, and now it functions. It's a miracle. So there we go. Here's why it gets worse. I stupidly picked up all my holotapes because I like to collect all my stuff, and I was curious, would this solution also fix it for the door that we saw the first time? So I went back there, and I did the same thing here. And I was like, oh, okay, so let's get into it the normal way. Now, when I did this, strangely, the voice of the woman, like kind of like the ghost of Abby, that's set up all these contingency plans, responded with, hey, you got into the area, but I can see that you already have the data from the computer, so you found out a way to get in there before getting this one open. So that's kind of strange. Congratulations on doing it in an unconventional way. So it's like she had planned for someone to be able to get into the second room before the first room. But there's an even bigger bug here that after this recording played on my Pip-Boy, by the way, it didn't play on the computer terminal, it played on the Pip-Boy, the other computer across the courtyard played its congratulatory message again. So somehow the first computer triggered the second one again, and I had a repeat audio log of her congratulating me twice, which is just baffling to me. I don't know what the hell happened here, or why it matters that you might have too many holotapes in your inventory. It's very, very, very strange. But admittedly, I should probably be storing them in the stash space in the camp, but they don't weigh anything, so I was just lugging them around with me as I collected them. Up last are the quests involving the Messenger, which is a world event that you can stumble upon where there is a Mr. Messenger robot that needs you to fix him because he's broken, and then you follow him to a house nearby, or not nearby, it could be quite far actually, and you just follow him there, and then he delivers his message to the house. It's supposed to be something that was set up before the bombs dropped, and he's only now completing it. You help him do that, and you follow him along the way, and then he gives you a reward. Now, apart from some pathfinding bugs that you're seeing here, this wouldn't really be worth bringing up in this video, even though they are quite hilarious, especially this one that's about to happen here with this giant rock that he just kind of tries to hump. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is that most of the times that we found this Mr. Messenger were when the server was being really bad and there were a lot of server problems. There was one time when we found a Mr. Messenger when the servers were performing well, and this is during that time I spoke about in the last video where Mandalore and I had the whole server to ourselves. We were the only ones on the server. It was like 76 co-op instead of the MMO kind of monster that it had become. And this was the only time during, I think, 4 Mr. Messenger quests that enemies spawned to attack the Mr. Messenger on the way. And that got cogs turning in our heads about, hey, maybe that's how they are all supposed to be, and that the poor state of the servers when there are too many people on it also affect quests as well as lag. That I really can't exaggerate this enough, that in the other 3 times that we walked the Mr. Messenger around, nothing spawned to get in our way. It was just follow him silently as no monsters, no super mutants, no animals tried to attack him. Just follow him there and then get your items, and that was it. Yet this time we had mole rats appear at us, ghouls, super mutants. They all wanted this Mr. Messenger secrets. My conclusion, admittedly I don't have a lot of stuff to go on here, is that this is how all of them are meant to function. And it's, you know, not a bad quest, not a great quest, but not a bad quest. And the server issues can cause quests to completely glitch out and be lesser versions of what they're meant to be, on top of them just being laggy as all hell and not really all that fun. Which is pretty heartbreaking, but also makes me wonder, what else are we missing? How many other quests aren't functioning properly? So I just want to repeat my plea again. Make an offline version of this game, please. I think it could be fun, even if it's an offline version where you just have co-op with maybe a limit of 4 people. I think that would be way more fun and interesting than what you have here. Moving on from that, we're going to be looking at pure server issues, or at least what I think are pure server issues. And this is going to be a little indulgent as I check my mail here. This is not on repeat, it's not looping. This is going to be a clip that plays from start to finish, and there are no jump cuts or anything. It's just me waiting for the server to update this container with whatever is supposed to be inside. And this section is going to be maybe beating a dead horse, but that's the whole video, right? Everyone knows that the game was buggy, but I think it's important to have a video stand as proof of just how bad this game was around launch. And I wish I had done this for Fallout 4, especially now because I could have referenced back at it and compared the two. That was my plan when I was making that first Fallout 4 video back in 2015, but I chickened out, and I just wanted the video out as soon as possible back then, and that's why it's a bit flawed now. But yeah, I wish I had done it. So eventually I give up, I think, or it just doesn't show, and we're going to be seeing a bunch of these issues here with server stuff, and we're going to speculate a little bit as this section goes on. So I think this jumps away to the next clip. It just never resolves, and we're going to see the same thing here now with enemies. So I killed that enemy. If you don't damage an enemy, you don't get to loot it. So even if you're in a group, there's no split loot unless you both deal damage. So as you can see, I dealt damage to this ghoul, and it just won't let me loot it. It's just updating forever and ever, trying to find loot to attach to this ghoul. And we'll talk about loot in a little bit when it comes to enemies having the wrong weapons, and maybe it's not a clear-cut issue. So yeah, I give up and I leave, and now the same thing is going to be in this trash can, and we'll let this play for less than the other ones, because I think I've made the point now. This happened very often around the starting area around Vault 76. And like I said, we'll talk about that in just a second. So here we have a combination of it not updating with loot and also the server going not responding. And here we have a lag on looting items. So I am pressing E and then looking away after I press E, and this is how long it takes for the item to get picked up. So whenever you see the cursor move away from the object, that's when I pressed E, and it takes that long in order for it to finally go into my inventory. I think the next one is when I shoot at a ghoul's head. Oh no, there's another toxic barrel. Again, I've used the item, I've moved away, and this is how long it takes for the server to be like, oh okay, we registered that now. It's very bad. Alright, here's the ghoul shooting in the head. So I missed the first 2 shots, even though I'm aiming right at it. Don't know how that happens. And the third shot lands, and yeah, there's like a good second there before the server realizes what's happened, and it blows that ghoul's head off. Here we have a beneficial lag bug. I'm sprinting right now, and sprinting costs action points, and if you look at the bottom right, it's not using any action points. And this happened very often, once again, around the main area. So now it's using action points. So this is beneficial lag, where the server isn't being met with to tell it that I'm using action points, I'm guessing. So because of lag, I get to sprint forever. I used that quite often early on, but that bug became rarer as time went on. Next, we have a server interruption while I'm trying to put down my camp. Putting on your camp is not as simple as it should be. Sometimes it won't let you put it down even though it says it's green and you can put it down, so you have to try multiple times before it finally registers. So here the server's not responding, and then my camp goes down while the server's not responding, and it's behind me, one of the first places I put it, and then I run over to use it, and then it gets moved again and costs caps again to be moved. And then, you know, like a jump scare, I'm afraid to turn around, and then I see it right there. Here we have some lagged out enemies. These are the bloat flies, and they kind of look like they're matched in the same sort of glitch here in the same place. So they're not moving, and again, I can't loot this Mirelurk next to it. Yeah, they're stuttering around a little bit, and we'll see another section later that is probably the same kind of lag, but I decided to make it its own section instead, which is warping enemies. But yeah, this is pretty bad. So what's happening, and what I think is happening here, is this is gonna sound contradictory, but the issue is, wow, that looks weird. The issue is that when a nuke goes off, many players will gather around one zone on the map, and sometimes that can be very laggy. It depends on the location that it is. Whenever there was a nuke in the White Springs, like we're seeing right now, it was awful. It was absolutely awful. But when there was a nuke out in the middle of the wilderness, where there wasn't that much density in buildings and the like, it was pretty stable if you were in that nuke area. The game was never stable apart from maybe that hour or two when we had the server to ourselves. But even then, that was more stable. It wasn't perfect. So what I think's happening is that if players gather in one area where the nuke is, in a remote location, or remote-ish location, the server can handle it because there's not much going on there, and it can divert all of the resources that it has to accommodating a bunch of players being in this one location, dealing with players battling all those enemies that spawn in that one location as they're fighting for loot and hopefully in a party and sharing all the XP that they get. There's a lot of things that are going on during those nuke events. But if that same amount of players are in a location that is, say, 4 to 5 times wider, like the area around Vault 76, and they are inhabiting many locations instead of one, so let's say there are 1 or 2 players in 8 different locations in one region of the map, that's going to be a lot harder and put a lot more strain on the servers than it is when that same amount of players is in the nuke zone out in the wilderness. So then you get a lot of these issues show up where the server can't handle it and the server is breaking. Just in the same way that if there are a lot of players in a nuke zone and you are not in that nuke zone, if you're not participating for whatever reason because you just don't want to, you can't get there in time, then the server tends to lag really hard on all the areas outside of that. At least that was my experience, which is limited. That's the problem with what we're looking at right here, is that it is quite limited. But these issues where it kept showing these server not responding messages were when there was a nuke on the map and we weren't there, or I wasn't there if I was playing solo. And the rest of the server not responding messages usually happened when I was in the middle of the map around Vault 76, and at the same time there were many players in those areas around me. If there were the same amount of players in those areas around me and I was on the edges of the map, the game ran not that bad. Not great, but not that bad. It was rare that I got these kind of messages. It still happened, of course, but it was a lot less common. That's my oddball theory, I guess. I don't know. Like I said earlier, I'm just speculating. I have no real idea how this works, and even if someone is really familiar with servers and MMOs, the way that Bethesda put it together, I think the only way you can know for sure is if you worked on the game, or you were involved in some way, or you spent days pulling it apart somehow, if that's even something that's possible with the version that launched. So it's always going to be speculation, but yeah, that's my theory, at least for what's causing these issues. Here we have a fog crawler that is kind of humping the floor as it moves around because it's completely lagged out. Looks pretty funny. And then we have some more of these ghouls that are just warping around with players in this area. Like I said, the White Springs doesn't handle being nuked all that well. There's probably just too many NPCs around here. There's too many of those robots that are friendly but maybe not friendly that can get aggroed on. And there's just too many ghouls that spawn around here, but it's a great place to get XP and loot. So yeah, they're just going to be warping all over the place here. It's very frustrating. There were many times where I shot other players accidentally here and got shot myself, but I think everyone understood that there wasn't going to be any PvP. It never turned into anything. So here we have a Scorch Beast that is stuttering in the air. We're going to be seeing a little bit more of this with some more Vertibots. Again, minor bug, but it all adds up, right? It's pretty bad when taken as a whole. So here is the a different part of what we've seen already with these Vertibots over this pond, and there's some floating debris there, and they're going to clip through each other and just go all over the place, and they're just completely glitched out. And here we have the second time and last time that I ever saw the rad toads, which are a really interesting enemy because they leave mines behind. They like let out spores or globes. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's like tadpoles or something. I have no idea. I don't know toads very well. And it was very disappointing to see them glitched out like this the second last time I ever saw them. They're a cool enemy. And here we see some more server not responding. It seems petty to complain about this, but it was really annoying to be doing stuff and be in the middle of playing the game and then suddenly you get this shit happening. Just every single time I was like, I'm not getting any benefit from being online. I'm not enjoying the multiplayer at all. It's just... You're just making me play an inferior version of your game just for money, as far as I'm concerned, just because you want to justify the online shop. You know, my time is being wasted because of this insistence to make it always online. I do have to wonder if that's anything to do with pirating games too. So here we have a part around a electrical tower, which I thought was not a bad location, and it's just completely lagged out again. This was when a nuke was going on, and we'll see it happening over and over again. I think we were stuck here for about 10 to 15 minutes without the server going down. And then it finally settled, and we built a camp, and then the server went down after that. It's like, it just makes no sense. It was like, it resolved, and it's like, oh, okay, it's finally stable. And then just out of nowhere, with no more server not responding, the server just went down. And we'll see something that I can nitpick here in just a second, which is a electrical spark that is hovering in the air below an exposed cable, which I didn't plan on pointing out in the video, but we have time here. There it is. It's just floating below it. Yeah, that's a nitpick though. It doesn't really matter. It's I just thought it was funny. You can probably find so many glitches in these clips that I don't even talk about. You know, a lot more of that blink that you miss at stuff. There's some Z fighting going on in a lot of clips too. There you go. Mandalore's just warping around because. And the jugs are flying everywhere. It's like he's leaving behind a trail of wind as he snaps through the air. We'll see that with a door later. It's one of my favorite bugs. Here we have the first time that we met up in the game, and he is just warping all over the place. And I think he crashed too. The first time we met up in the game, he just disappeared for a second. And now we're going to try and build something like the idiots that we are. And we just keep moving all over the place, and even the menu is slow to respond. And we finally get it done, and then server not responding, server not responding. After saying all that, the last one we're going to see here is a way to bridge to the next section, which is, if you look carefully in the background, you will see that robot stand there, vanish, and then walk out of the thing that created it again, which is pretty funny. And you'd think that wouldn't be something that you see a lot during your time with the game, but then I went to Watoga, or Watoga, I think it's Watoga. This is a city in the southeast part of the map, which is one of the more interesting locations, and it was supposed to be an automated city. And they have these robot dispenser unit launchpad things that are all over the place that I assume are connected to like an underground factory. And all of these were glitched out. All of them. Every single one of them in this city. No matter what, they wouldn't open, and the robot would just appear and just come right out of it like that. Clip right through the cylinder. And the only reason why I'm showing this so many times is because I just think it's ridiculous that every single one of them broke. And it makes me wonder how things are put together that all of them can break like this. One or two would be understandable or more understandable, but all of them means there is a central glitch that's going on there. And maybe it's not even linked to this area, maybe it's something that affects other parts of the game too, and this is just how it presented itself here. And we can see a similar issue in the next bunch of clips, which are all about power armor and how that is bugged out too. Now, the reason why I'm going to show so many of these is that power armor is something that you regularly use you will get so many fusion cores. The limit on your fusion core count is actually how much they weigh, because inventory weight is such a big deal. And you will see clip after clip here of this just being glitched to shit. So I will be able to jump into it without it opening. It just will not open at all, even though I trigger the animation to start, and I will just clip right through it. But this isn't the only glitch that you'll see with the power armor, even though it is the most common one. I don't understand how something that every player is going to use time and time again was in such a poorly tested state, and I don't know if this would happen in Fallout 4. I'm not sure. So the other glitches that we're going to see are ones where the armor plates will vanish before I turn the wheel. That happened a fair amount, and of course this time is when the armor opens, so it's like no matter what, you're gonna get a glitch. Yeah, so that was kind of weird to see. Yeah, it vanishes and then it comes back up again. And even this set of armor does it too. It's not just that one Ultrasight set that does it, although that was the most common one. But that's not the only bug too. There's more than these two bugs. But we'll see some more of this right now. Oh, this time it didn't work. Not only did the armor spawn, it also clipped right through again, which is just fantastic. So I think this is the first one where it doesn't even show the animation at all. I just use it and then suddenly I just warp into it after a second. It thinks it's playing the animation, you can see the delay, but it doesn't happen, so that's just great. So this is the third bug associated with power armor, but don't worry, there's more. So here we have Mandalore climbing into an invisible set of power armor. He told me, I think, that it did the same for me when he saw me climbing into it sometimes, and then it just appears. And then here he is doing it again, just fantastic. And of course we saw that Slender Man issue earlier. Here it vanishes when he gets out of it. And there was someone else here too. You can see the head pop up here, which is creepy. Woo, floating head. Same thing. And this is one where I got stuck in the animation. So I have used the power armor and tried to climb into it. And I thought this was another glitch where it was going to resolve itself after the animation tried to play. But no, I'm stuck here right now. I can't move. My UI is gone. And I can't get out of this. It won't let me. So I'm trying to look at the map to see if I can find a way out of it. I'm trying to use my weapon wheel, and I'm thinking at this point, oh, okay, it's crashed. You know, I can't, or well, effectively crashed. Like, it's still running, but I'm gonna have to restart the game. And the way I got out of it was just trying everything. And we'll see here that I think I tried to fast travel and it won't let me because I'm over encumbered and I can't drop my items. But I do get out of it by opening the emote wheel. Just on a whim, I thought, hey, I should try that out. And when I tried an emote, it broke me out of it, and I was able to move again. And did I learn my lesson, or did I try? No, I didn't learn my lesson. I tried to get into it, and it opened up, and I was able to climb into it. And those are all the power armor glitches. Something that you'll be using probably multiple times for every hour that you're in the game. And that's how bugged it is. So, just excellent. Continuing this theme of things that are reliably bugged, which just should never happen, those words should never go together, are the cargo bots. Now, these cargo bots are activated. You can already see it's moving out or moving around like crazy. These cargo bots are activated by using a requisitions holotape at a satellite station and calling the cargo bot to come drop you supplies. It doesn't make any sense, the items that they give you in these boxes, but I think it's supposed to be set up from some military installation that is still running since before the war. So you'll see in every single clip that there's always a problem with these guys. They will either jitter as they come down, or they will teleport themselves into the floor. Here, it's actually in there before I could move toward the box. You could see that I was hitting something invisible on the floor there. That's because the robot was already on the floor before it appeared. No matter what, these would always present themselves with a problem. Even when you think, oh, this is the time it's going to be great, you know, it's coming in smoothly, there's not going to be any issue, this is the time that there isn't going to be a bug. Nope, they find a way. Here we go. Oh, it's moving around like crazy, and then it drops the crate. These get worse as they go on, surprisingly. So I look away and I don't get a good shot of it teleporting into the ground again, unfortunately. Yep, there it goes. I don't understand how it's every time that this happens. Here we have one that's in the distance, and it's on an angle for whatever reason, and then it drops it, and then I think it goes on the floor again with these robots that are waiting to get the supplies. And then, you know, I must go. My people need. Oh no, it moved away and then it teleported into the ground, and just fantastic. Oh man, it's so good. I was so happy whenever I got to summon one of these because it was just beautiful every single time. So this is near where you first see your Scorch Beast in the story. Is he gonna teleport into the ground again? Is it gonna happen? Why am I even asking? Of course it's gonna happen. So the smoke here looks okay, which is weird because smoke in the game is usually bad. So here's an unrelated bug. Even animals can't handle these properly. Just run right through the crate there. And here we have some of my favorite ones. We have the floating crate. What happened here? No idea what the story is. I wish I had seen this drop. And this one is to do with a Brotherhood of Steel quest where it showed up and it doesn't have a box. That's intentional. It's not supposed to have a box. I'm supposed to go up and I'm supposed to install something on it, so I'm going to go do that now. And you would think that, this is a quest one. It's going to work properly. It's going to work flawlessly. I removed some ammo when I did that, and it just vanishes. Great. And here we have another floating one. I wish I'd seen this one drop. I wish I'd seen it drop. And this is the best one. The best one. So I didn't see this one drop, but the crate is stuck in the floor, and then it... What? And every time, I'm sorry, there's no commentary there, it's just me laughing. Oh, that's so great. I love that so much. Okay, so you may be wondering, is anywhere safe? If you're away from all the NPCs and the cargo bots and power armor and enemies and quests, is there anywhere that's safe? The server's running well. What could possibly happen when you're out in the middle of nowhere? Well, it turns out just running around has its problems. So sometimes when you're moving, you will just hit something out of nowhere and you will be stuttered. And yeah. So I was very careful whenever this happened to look around to make sure I hadn't taken a bullet from something nearby. Even though enemy awareness is very low and that shouldn't happen. But every time in these clips, there was nothing around that possibly could have done it, except for maybe one that's questionable. So this one is a blood splatter on your face out of nowhere. That would happen too. So I don't know if maybe this is a glitch, that it's meant to hit you and stutter you, but that's not happening. Here, yep, apparently there was something in that doorway that stopped me. And we have one here too. Yep, just even walking around is glitched out. So I have no idea what's causing this. Maybe there are invisible enemies. Maybe there's invisible enemies dealing invisible damage that also doesn't show up on your health bar. No idea what's causing this. These were hard to find in the footage, but I made sure to make a note of them because they were just so strange. Every single time it would just make me stop and look around and think, what the fuck? This is the one that's questionable because there are fireflies around, but they don't deal damage to you. They're passive enemies, so I doubt it. This is the best one, and this is after I went back in the game after being mostly finished with the last video, and I went in to play it after the patch. I am running through this rainy forest, and not only do I get stuttered, it completely knocks me over like I took a massive hit. So yeah, what's happening here? If you have any ideas, please let me know, because this is one of the ones I am most curious about. What would cause the player to take, not damage, but take a hit that staggers them out of nowhere? I'm really curious. Now we have some floating stuff, which is just a great title. I think that'll just be what the section is called, floating stuff. So here's a floating pile of meat, which is what a corpse turns into after some time. Here is a flare that's hanging in the air. This one's special, unexpected. Here we go. So if you see something floating in the air and you have a rifle, you're gonna, with a scope, you're gonna look at it, and there you go. And now it's gone. Here are some UFO plates that are floating above these towers. Obviously they're meant to be connected to the top of the towers, but they're floating above it. I just think it's funny that both of them are like that. They just copy and pasted one to the other and it still didn't work out. Here's a floating rock. These are nitpicks, of course, but they're still funny. Here's a floating sloth that's not on this tree properly, and we'll see an even better floating sloth here, which is nowhere near the tree. I don't think he can float on those strangler vines, or hang on the strangler vines, so yeah, there he goes. Good job, sloth. Here's someone's corpse doggy bag floating in the air, and here's a Wendigo floating in the air in this cave. This is for a quest. And here are some robots floating in the air around this factory, and yeah. who knows what's going on there. This one's hard to see. There is a ghoul or a skeleton that's floating in the air there. It's going for a flight, and I will slow it down and show you zoomed in. That isn't, a big bug, but I just think it's really funny, so we're putting that in there. And behind this house, we will see a tree branch that is floating in the air that isn't connected to a tree. And like some of the other glitches that we've seen, I wonder how many of these I didn't see because I don't really look at the sky all that much. I'm usually looking at stuff around me and on the horizon. But that's not fair. It's not fair to say, oh, there's probably tons more of these, I just didn't see them. But it is fun to speculate. Somewhat related, we're going to be looking at pop-in terrain now. This one we're starting way earlier than we're going to see the pop-in because I want to prove that I didn't fast travel here. So I'm walking quite far away from this location to get there, and we're trudging through this forest, and then all of a sudden, there we go. That was the worst one. That was the worst pop-in terrain in the game. Here we're going to see a bridge pop in, and here we're going to see the toxic wastes pop in here. I think there's 2 layers to this one. There's the first one with all the toxic lights coming on, and then you'll see it happen again in the background. Now, some of this is acceptable, and you just have to meet the game halfway and think, okay, you can't have everything loaded all the time, and there's going to be levels of detail that they're going to have to scale back to for the game to be able to run. But I think there are better ways of doing this, especially since they've been more successful about it in other games. So here, depending on where you're looking, it's trying to make it so it doesn't have to render these items, I think, and it thinks I'm not able to see them, but I can. So something isn't set up here. If I look back the other way, stuff will disappear on the other side too. So this area is really glitched out. This is an example of something that is most acceptable, the trees becoming, more fleshed out as you get closer. But it is very distracting, but I don't know if this is fair criticism. Just like some of the Z fighting here with the water on the stairs. This is probably okay, but yeah, the house, I guess I'm more critical of it when it's a building instead of just the land. Like this tower flickering in and out here. The monorail system around here had a lot of problems too. There must be a better way, but this is definitely not the biggest problem here. Part of this lake is missing, and then it loads in, and we'll see the same thing for the shoreline. Yeah, see, that's pretty bad, right? Here too, as we jump over, it's really distracting. It really pulls you out. Maybe there isn't a better way of doing it. It's not just terrain though. We have pop-up weapons. So here we go. My favorite thing about these is that it looks like the weapon spawns above the character and they catch it. I love it so much. In this one, the super sledge appears and he holds it like a rifle for a second before he holds it properly. And then the next one with the combat shotgun is sort of the same thing, where it looks like the character catches the weapon being thrown to them and they were preemptively holding out their arms for it. Just great. Just great. Also a bug that happened in Fallout 4 as well, if I remember correctly. So that's one that's persisted between the different games. Next up, we have about 10 or 12 examples of something that might not be a glitch. It might be a deliberate change, but we'll discuss it as we go. And this is enemies not having the right weapon after you kill them. So he's holding an axe right now, and after you take him down, it is turned into a lead pipe. This one is a cockroach, and he is going to be wielding no, it's the super mutant that comes behind. He's holding a board, which turns into a sledgehammer. This one has an axe that is a switchblade. That's not even close. This one's an assault rifle that turns into a 10mm pistol, if I remember correctly. Yep, there it is. This one is a shotgun that turns into a charging laser sniper rifle. This one is a machete that is a knuckle duster. You probably think this one is a pitchfork, but you're wrong. It's actually a spear. What I'm wondering here is that maybe the server can't maintain consistency between the weapons that the enemies are using, and it doesn't really care what they're using all that much. It doesn't keep track of ammo that they're firing out. It doesn't keep track of damage types that well. It has to for certain perks, but maybe those perks are glitched out and don't work. There's perks that make it so you take less energy damage, and maybe those don't work if you tested them. But it seems fairly apparent that the server doesn't care about what weapon they're using during their time alive and then what you can loot off their corpse. And this might be deliberate to make the server run better, that if the server doesn't have to keep track of that, it can just assign some loot to it at the end and it doesn't have to worry about consistency, and that might make it easier on it. What's disappointing is that part of the appeal of Bethesda's open world games is that if you see an enemy with a specific item, you can kill them and then you can loot it afterwards. Any armor that they're wearing, you can pick it all up after you're done. Same for maybe a missile launcher, but I think that's pretty rare, and that's not a good piece of criticism to include in the video. But hey, I said it anyway. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some people will agree with that and think that's an important part of the game. What makes this hard to nail down, though, is that when an enemy is wielding an unusual weapon, like a pool cue, or one of those big heavy weapons like a missile launcher, 9 times out of 10, they will have that on their corpse when you loot them after you've killed them. Whereas the more ordinary weapons like an assault rifle or a 10mm gun or a hunting rifle, those are the ones that are usually the wrong ones when you finally kill them and loot the bodies. So I wonder if maybe it prioritizes some enemies that have unusual weapons and the other ones it just doesn't care and it just says, hey, whatever's there is whatever's there. So that's all I can say about that. Related to these weapons is an issue that I only noticed when putting this video together. I never saw this in the game itself, so some of you might think that's unfair criticism because if I never noticed while playing, it doesn't count, but it's still interesting to point out, and that is weapons that are completely busted and exploded on enemies as they're using them, and we'll be seeing those starting now. I'll be doing some freeze frames so you can see this better. So here we fight 2 Scorched, we kill the first one, and then we hit the second one. And you will see the pipe pistol has a spring part and the bullets just floating in the air outside of the gun. And that's the best one that we'll see. The rest are way worse. So here you have part of the gun, the shotgun, just floating right in the air next to it. And we'll see this one where way more of the pipe pistol is floating in the air after we kill it. Sometimes they would be floating no matter what. Sometimes it would be after I killed them. The killing blow made the gun explode, which was really funny. So that one was pretty bad there too, another pipe pistol. Here we'll see a 10mm handgun, and the first frame is before it dies, it's fine, and then the second frame after it dies is that it explodes, and cherry on top here is that in its inventory it had the wrong kind of gun. We'll see a few more of these here with shotguns exploding after the enemy dies. Before death and then after death, there you go, it completely bursts open, and you'll see some more of these if you have been paying attention throughout the video. This is a fairly common issue and it's something I could probably fill a lot more time with, but it's not the most interesting thing to see, especially when it's such a widespread problem. So we'll move on to something that's a lot more entertaining, which is duplicating heads. This didn't happen that often, but I'm still going to point it out because it is just that entertaining. So a head spawns after you do a headshot, but it doesn't remove the first head. So there will be 2 heads from the same enemy on the ground, which is gorgeous. So this happened at least 3 times, at least we'll be showing 3. So yep, there's the head, it spawns off of the corpse, and now there are 3 heads from 2 bodies. And here's the third one, where just one shot, boom, and there's a duplicate head on the floor next to the corpse. Wonderful. What's causing that, I wonder? What's causing that? Having seen some more of these Scorch bugs, maybe we should move on to like a miscellaneous category, the Scorch Special as it's called in my list. So here we'll have a Scorched appear in the background from its resting state, just standing up, just appears. And we'll see headless Scorched that are also naked, and then they warp up like that. This is probably caused by lag, but this is an even more extreme version of what we saw earlier with Scorch stuck in sort of idle animations until you get close. Here, they're not loading in properly. So, missing heads, missing clothes. Here I do VATS and breaks it out of it, I think. Yeah, VATS fixes it, so it's probably a visual bug and not on the server's end. Not sure. Here there are 2 headless naked Scorch that appear and then vanish. They must be embarrassed because they got caught naked. I don't blame them. Here's another one that I think fixes itself when I get close enough. So I don't know why that fixes it, whereas VATS did it last time. Oh, wait, this is a ghoul. This isn't a Scorched. This shouldn't be in here. This is a ghoul doing a half-ass T-pose. Yeah, alright. Oh no. This video lacks consistency now. I snuck a ghoul in with the Scorch. That's not good. Here we have one of my favorite glitches in the game. Absolutely stellar stuff here. So this is a... Do I even have to describe it? Like, it speaks for itself, right? So this is a bunch of naked Scorched. So when I first saw it, I thought this was just one naked Scorched that was in this state. And as you can see, I'm shooting around it, and it just doesn't care. It's not reacting at all, and I'm really close to it now. So Scorched Leader and Scorched Warrior if you get close enough. So there's at least 2. I didn't notice that when I first got here, though. I thought it was just one just mutated Scorched. And we'll see another bug in the same area, because, just one isn't enough. Here is a headless Scorch that's also naked, reaching out. You can even see through their neck hole to see the ground through them. And I make a really, really big mistake here. As you can see, I shoot this guy and it knocks him out of it, and then I can attack him. And the big mistake I do is with the other monstrosity that's on the railroad tracks here. I should have shot it to see what would have happened, but I had more ambitious plans, and I decided to use some of my fragmentation mines. So I laid a trap down, and this obscures the big reveal here, and I wish I hadn't done it. I wish I just shot him with a shotgun. But here we go. So I'm laying down some mines to see what can happen. And surprise, surprise, as the smoke clears, it was way more than one. It was 4 of them all together in the same spot, all into that mutated mass of Scorch, which is one of my favorite bugs in the game. Here is a section that shouldn't have its own section at all, door bugs. So we're going to start off with one of my favorites, which is in that same room we saw earlier with the entrance to the Enclave bunker. Now, why this is one of my favorites is that when the door opens, it snaps open so fast that it seems like the server is in on it because those papers go flying. It's like it really servers in on it because those papers go flying. It's like it really did physically open from one state to the other, and the game reacted to it instead of it just being a visual glitch. I love it. I love it so much. Here's another one that does the same thing. This is a sliding door that just opens immediately, but there's no debris here to go flying. Here are a bunch of doors that the server thinks are open, so when I go to open them, I close them instead. At least that's what I think what's happening here. So yeah, that's 2, and here is a third one. Sometimes enemies will be able to go through doors because the server thinks they're open and you can't for whatever reason. At least maybe I could have if I had tried, but I never tried walking through a door. So yeah, why would I? But you know, more fool me. So here we go. An enemy just goes straight through that door without opening it because the server thinks it's open. I'm guessing, not sure. And then I go and open it, but now they can't get through. Now they can't get through. So yeah, inconsistent. They have to open it. Same thing here with enemy just clipping through as the door opens, and here a Scorch opens the door like that, which is just beautiful. Here I attack the door because I'm scared of it, because one time a door hurt me. Yep. Yeah, doors are very dangerous in this game. And here we have a door that will open in a direction depending on what you're looking at it. So if you look at it from one direction, it will start to open in that way. So if you turn around quickly as you go through, the door will match that and open toward you, which is like, again, it's one of the very small bugs, but they all add up into this mountain. Now we have 2 sections back to back that shouldn't need their own titles, but we're going to be looking at fire and rain because of course we are. The first one is a flamethrower trap that spawns this weird visual artifact whenever it's active. This is when I was playing with Mandalore, and he saw that too, these weird shiny shapes that are in the fire. I think this was the only place that this happened with fire, but it was consistent. Yeah, just I don't know. I'm sorry to say I don't know so much, but I have no idea what's going on there. But this wasn't the only glitch with fire. Sometimes fire would be creating light, but there would be no fire where it should be, so it's just missing. But then you can find the missing fire out in the middle of the wilderness here. There's just fire. So there's no voice of God speaking to me from this fire, so I'm assuming that is the fire that we just saw that's missing. It also doesn't do damage, and this will be a trend. There's a great amount of fire in this game that will never do damage to you. You can just walk straight through it. We'll be seeing more of that in just a moment here. Yep, there's some fire in this factory that just will not hurt you when you go over to it. So I think the visual is there, but the effect isn't. I think that's what's happening here. Here's some more fire in the same way. It's just there, and just walk right through it. No damage. It's no big deal at this point. I'm used to it. Here's the first fire that I found that wouldn't do damage to me, and I would stand in it, and just looking real cool standing in this fire. And then I think I call Mandalore over and say, hey, does this do damage to you? And we pose for our album cover in this fire here. And last one here is a ghoul that just randomly catches on fire. My weapon doesn't have a fire effect. That ghoul just decided to catch on fire. That one might be something that I don't understand. I'm willing to propose that there's something there that I don't understand. Maybe there's some buff or debuff it had. I have no idea. There's another fire bug that we'll be seeing later, but now we're going to move on to rain. Most of the bugs involving rain are that it rains indoors. So at first we're going to be seeing the visor reacting to the rain falling on you, even though there's a roof above your head. There's a theory I have about this that we'll talk about later involving rooms, but yeah. And we'll be seeing, I think, 2 examples of this with the visor showing rain when we are indoors, and there shouldn't be rain falling on us. At least we can't see it. Maybe there's invisible rain here too. It fits with the rest of the game. It's raining inside. But sometimes it actually really is raining inside. So we'll go down here, and we'll go in this room, and we will see rain coming through multiple floors of this house. So you saw a quick flash of there in this room. I don't think I noticed when I was playing. But then there's this room, which has bug lighting as well. And here we go. It's just raining through this ceiling and another ceiling above, because this is the basement of a house. And it's raining in this room too. So that's just fantastic. Here we go. We're hanging out in the rainy basement. There's going to be some more things we see later about bugged rooms. And basically what I think is these rooms are considered to be outside because the rooms weren't put together properly. So the game thinks they're outside, so it's letting the rain fall through. It's not recognizing the roof. And here we have another one where, depending on where you look, you will see rain. So if you turn around, you'll be able to see rain, and then it despawns as soon as you look at it. The whole room is like this. That's pretty bad. I don't remember this room being that bad. Wow. There are other things like this where if you don't look at something and then you look at it quickly, there will be some sort of visual glitch. Here you have the robes on these mole people that are moving when you move back to it. It's like the physics on it resets when you're not looking, and then when you look back at it, then it falls. There were many coats like this in the game that did this. Oh, we've seen a few examples of this one. Oh, here it's a bag. So the bag is there, and it slowly falls through the mattress, and you look away, and it resets, and you look back, and there it is. Just kind of messes with your expectations a little bit. Here's another coat flap on this guy that died on a chair. Yeah, just awesome. And here's something that some people might not think is worth pointing out, but I thought it was interesting. And this is smoke. So smoke is the same way. Smoke comes out of a spawning source from fire or on the ground, and if you're not looking at it, it won't spawn. But the problem with this is that there's so much smoke in a lot of scenes that if you're looking away and then you turn back, you will actually see it begin to rise out of the ground, and you might even see some of the smoke lingering in the air from where the trail has lifted off into the sky. And again, this isn't a big issue. It's not like the game is ruined because of this smoke issue, but it's so weird, and I don't understand what's happening, as always. I have no idea why this would be acceptable, but the error and reason that I'm making is that I'm assuming that the game was tested at all, and maybe it wasn't. So maybe this is one of many issues where they had to cut down what the game did for the server to work, but I have no idea why the server would care about spawning smoke in areas. This is just visuals, so my guess is that I'm putting too much weight on that explanation to do with the server, and that this is something else entirely. This is just something that wasn't tested enough. Moving on to smoke, we have some messed up shadows, which is related to smoke because usually it's on particle effects in the air. So here we have the portal to the bear dimension, as Mandalore called it, where you can see the shadows being cast off of the scaffold and the giant excavator here, and they are being caught in the smoke that's rising out of the ground, and you can see that they're all messed up. This was fairly interesting, and there were multiple places in the game where this happened. And we come back here after the sun moved to see what they would look like because we thought that maybe it would be a different set of shadows on the smoke here. And it turns out that we were right. We come here later, and now we can see this bush here. I'm not sure how well this is going to show up on YouTube because YouTube will process the video to be able to be streamed, but I hope it shows up at least a little bit with these bushes here and the shadows. It looks kind of cool. Other sources of smoke in the game have the same problem. As we can see here, there's a lot of flickering, or at least it looks like flickering, but it's really shadows trying to be caught on the smoke. We'll see another one here with the headlights of my power armor. You can see the particle effect, I guess, of, I don't know what it is actually, but there's shadows being caught in the light. This one probably won't show up on YouTube, but it looks like ghost branches are caught in the beam of the headlight. It actually looks pretty cool. I like the effect. I wonder if there's something that could be done with that in a game on purpose. This is clearly a glitch. Here we have some more messed up shadows, but this time it's in a different way. So this whole area is spawning, instead of the shadow of the ghoul, or sorry, the scorched, it's spawning this weird mix of the terrain instead. Once again, for what feels like the 1000th time here, I have no idea what's causing this. It's like the shadows are coming from the wrong source or something. So after looking at this for a while, I think I switched to third person mode, and I realized that it's happening to me too. It also depends on how close I am to the enemies. They're normal shadows until I get close enough to them, and then they turn into this weirdness. And it's only moving things. As you can see here, it's happening to me too. Anything that's stationary in the area is fine, but anything that moves has this problem. And as you can see, as I jump, it casts a bigger shadow, and it makes more of it appear. And as I move around the place, the shadow changes, like it's moving from a different source. It's very weird. Very, very, very weird. I don't know what's causing this again. That seems to be my go-to phrase whenever I need to fill some silence in the video. I don't know what's causing this. So here I get out of the power armor, and the power armor shadow is fine, but my shadow isn't. So I wonder if I could find a way to move the power armor, if it would have caused that shadow too. So here I'm in a different area, and you can see that the shadow has changed. There, Scorch just appears out of nowhere, but I don't care. I want to see if my shadows are still messed up in this area, and they are. And here's the wilderness around it. Quite far from the area, you know, it's a minute or two away, and the shadows are still messed up here too. So here they look like trees, quite a few trees actually, so I don't know what's going on. And here I go back to the theme park, and it's a different area, and this looks like a weird broken circle shadow here. Just for a break, we're going to be showing some dancing NPCs. So here are some dancing mole rats, almost certainly caused by lag, but here they go. They wanted to kill me, but it's sort of like that video, if you've seen it, of Super Smash Bros. Where there are 3 or 4 people playing Captain Falcon, and when the music cuts to a part where they'll have to say, show me your moves, to the beat of the music. And it's like these mole rats are trying to kill me, and then suddenly they get to a part of the song that they can't help but dance to, and they're stuck dancing. And then they snap out of it, and then they go back to trying to get me again. I hope at least some of you have seen that video, because that's a great video. Yeah, so here they are, just dancing. This was very entertaining. I'm pretty sure I was laughing quite hard as I was standing on this car playing the game. It was funnier live because it's just another one added onto the pile. Here it is from a different angle. I've left the safety of my car, and yeah, they are just dancing away. They don't care that I'm shooting. Just dance. There they go. They're shaking their butts. I wonder what song they're hearing. It's probably something good. Something by Beyonce. And here we have a headbanging Scorch. Just in the background, there he goes. And then the other one kind of joins in for a second, and then they want to kill me because I interrupted their dance party. Now for something on the Scorch Beasts. This is a... I want to say it's a serious glitch, but is it? I don't know at this point. I don't know if any of them could be considered serious glitches at this point, because a serious glitch implies that there's a bigger problem going on, or it wrecks the game, when really they all join in to wreck the game in their own special way. So these Scorch Beasts are bats that were mutated by nukes that fell in the surrounding area, but Appalachia wasn't actually hit by a nuke itself. So they have mutated and have this area to be the apex predators, I think, and spread their scorched hive mind. So as you can see, they send out these sonic volleys at me. This is not intentional. This is the glitch. You've been seeing this glitch the whole time. This is only supposed to last at most 10 seconds. And this is going on for almost a minute. Not only is this an excessive stream of consistent damage coming at you, it also makes the enemies really hard to see and shoot back at. So in the end, I think I just gave up and let the Scorched Beasts do this when they got into this state, and just waited for them to be done or land on the ground and then hit them with melee weapons. That's what I gravitated toward over my playthrough, was being a melee guy with my Super Sledge and my Junkie's Fire Axe, which does more damage when I do a power attack. It was one of the best weapons that I found in the game outside of that Vampiric Super Sledge. As you can see, this is just a mess, right? It's just constantly coming down. Over and over and over again. This is not the way it's meant to be, and I know that because this didn't happen all that often. I think it happened with almost every Scorch Beast that I found, but maybe only once. This one is special and did it multiple times throughout the whole entire fight that I was engaged with him in this forest here. And I wonder if maybe it's something to do with a pathfinding error, that he couldn't find a place to land, so he was stuck just doing this sonic volley over and over and over again. I mean, if this is intentional, if this is the way it's meant to be, then that makes it even worse. It's better if this is a bug, because how was this considered to be compelling gameplay? That, oh, we're just going to have an enemy just fly up in the air, and for as much criticism as Sin the Dragon in the Dark Souls 2 DLC gets for flying up in the air often and you're not being able to attack him, at least he doesn't do damage while he's up there, whereas this is just ridiculous, just constantly pelting you with these sonic blasts that make it so you can't even see. Yeah, this is really, really bad, and I hope that it's a glitch, like I said. So I'm just going to let this play for a little while longer. I wish I had included an example of it working properly. Maybe it was at the beginning of this section where it shows the Scorch Beast doing a quick volley, but I'm guessing that some people might have forgotten about that as a reference by now, so maybe I'll put another one at the end, or I'll repeat that one so you can see what it's supposed to look like. I think this one right now is the longest volley that it was. This looks like it's over a minute in my list here, and yeah, it's 1 minute and 14 seconds. I just moused over it. That he just consistently does this volley blast, and I'm just eating through healing resources. I think this was before I got the Vampiric Sledge, because otherwise I would have been hitting the blasts out of the sky with my Vampiric Sledge, trying to heal as they're coming at me. But instead, I'm just eating through all my healing resources. I tried to make these different sections flow together and be related in some way, so we just saw a bunch of projectiles, so now we're going to look at suspended projectiles, which are coming from normal enemies and are very, very weird. So here we have these ones from these anglers that will just, it's like Kylo Ren is in the forest somewhere, just holding them in place. This happened consistently with these enemies. We'll see it again here in this third clip, where it just hangs in the air, and then this fourth clip here, we'll see one hit me before it should. There's also going to be another one that spawns in the air here. And then this one ignites me before it hits me, before it's even close. Yeah, I'm already ignited while it's still in the swamp, pretty much. And we'll see a few more of these as they're sort of intended to be, but yeah, they're hovering as they land, so there's something wrong with how they despawn after they hit enemies, I think. Or if they don't hit anything, they're just going to hover there for a while. Missiles from this launcher have the same problem. They will hang in the air. Sometimes it looks pretty cool, actually. It hangs and then it goes forward, but it might be a little hard to see as I move around here because I'm trying to fight. But there will be a accumulation of these missiles that build up in the air as the fight goes on, and you have to pay real close attention to see them. Sometimes they stop closer to the Scorch Beast that they're meant to be fighting instead of just next to the launcher, and they will hang there, and then they will move, or they will explode in midair. So this culminated in a great moment where the Scorch Beast died and just slammed right into the building, and then all the missiles in the air behind it exploded. You see all the flashes now. Those are all the missiles that were hanging in the air from the whole entire fight. Now that the Scorch Beast is dead, they're like, oh, what do we do? Oh, I guess we just die. Here's something that maybe shouldn't be in this category, but oh well. This Assaultron is doing a laser blast that is hitting me even though it is nowhere near me. There it is. It's doing damage right now, even though it's hitting that wall. I turn around to see if there's anything there, and there is nothing. It's still doing damage, and then as I get close, it snaps onto me finally, and the visual matches the damage. These last two will be hard to see. The first one is questionable. It's this big robot that's spawning a projectile that spawns more projectiles. And the problem is that it doesn't match up, so they're spawning all over the place where they shouldn't be. It doesn't make sense that it's supposed to be one big projectile that splits at a certain point into smaller ones, and as you can see here, it's spawning way too many of them in this forest area. And then it fixes itself after I go down there. It's just carpet bombing the whole place. This glitch is when I went back in after the patch went in, and I didn't notice this until I slowed the footage down, but now I have to show it. So this super mutant throws a grenade at me, and we're going to go frame by frame here. So, thrown grenade, here it comes, and you can see the grenade coming toward me in front of my face. It's almost about to hit me, and then it despawns, then it comes from behind me, then it's coming close to me, then it despawns again, comes from behind me again, goes down on my butt, then up to my head, then toward my shoulder, then it's about to hit me, then it despawns again after the next frame. Where is it? And then it explodes at my feet even though it's not there. So, I don't know, I kind of want to see that again. So, with the grenade that's just magically bouncing all over the place, and then it goes from in front of me to behind me, then it vanishes. It looks like it's across the grass. it's near the super mutants when it comes to the indicator, and then it turns out it was at my feet the whole time, and then it explodes, which is gorgeous. Just an amazing, amazing bug, and I'm glad that I slowed the footage down to see it, because it confused me at the time, but I didn't realize what had happened. Moving on from vanishing grenades, we're going to look at vanishing items, which are usually legendary items. So I have this special Fat Man that I drop, and it's gone forever, which I don't really care about because I didn't want this item, but it happened again earlier with an item that I did want. So I was trying to get Mandalore to pick up this item because he hadn't got a legendary item yet. Every time you pick up a legendary item, it does this, hey, you got a legendary item, big ceremony thing on the screen. So I want to see what happened with him, and I dropped it on the ground, and it vanished. It clipped through the floor, and it was gone forever. And as you can see, it worked the first time. I was able to drop it and pick it up, so it's not a problem with legendary items, but it went away forever. And that was actually my best melee weapon at the time, so I was pretty bummed that that was gone. And I shouldn't have took the chance, I guess, but I didn't think that dropping an item on the floor would make it disappear. From warping items, we're going to go to warping enemies now, which is probably lag. So we have this guy that does this sidestep here that looks pretty cool. Then we have this Snallygaster that moves when I look at it like it was in the wrong position and it's embarrassed. And then I take a couple shots at it and it doesn't react right away. Here we have the Himiko.
And if none of the other something out. Webhooks are very useful. They allow the plugin essentially to send messages to a webhook. So for this example, I set up a
robot that teleports just once, but not to be outdone, there was another robot across the map with the Tea Time quest where it acts like it's the shopkeeper from Majora's Mask at the beginning. As it's talking to me, it just keeps moving around this room between dialogue lines. It's going to go to the left now. There it goes, and it's going to do a line, and then it's going to teleport again, and it keeps doing this throughout the whole conversation. And the whole time I'm just bewildered and really enjoying myself because this was the first time I saw this kind of bug. And I was like, okay, just even this isn't right. How does this happen? How does this happen? But yeah, this was entertaining. There's another robot here that approached me in the wilderness and thinks it's going to explode, and it wants my help fixing it. And after it tells me that, it despawns, appears on the ground after flickering one frame standing upright, and then I fixed it and we both went our separate ways. This is a firefly that vanishes and goes into the ether somewhere. See you later, firefly. Still flying, man. They're still flying. This next one is one of my favorite bugs. It's this cockroach that I shoot. It does a matrix dodge, and then it's on the floor where I was standing. So it's like it tried to switch positions with me and failed. So I don't know what's going on there. I love this one so much because it's timed so perfectly when I shoot at the cockroach and it just vanishes. It's just fucking great. Here's a fog crawler that has some great moves when it comes to dodging my gunfire. It's going to be all over the place. I think this one was shown in the previous video too. It does a jump up in the air there, and then it snaps all the way behind me, and then it continues to jump around a bit as I'm shooting at it. This one is a Vertibot convoy, so you see one in the distance there, and it's stuttering forward as it's moving. I try to shoot at it, which I don't get. And then there's a second one, which is stuttering the same way, just not doing well. And then there's a third one that its propellers aren't moving for whatever reason, and then I shoot at it, and this one I land a shot on it. I think the third shot I finally get it, and that gets the propellers moving. But it's still stuttering like that in the sky for whatever reason. It's I don't know where they're going. They seem to be on some sort of mission, but stutter, 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 like they're marching to a glitched out beat. Maybe it's the same music that those mole rats were hearing earlier. There's one more clip in this section, which is this is a great one. So there's this bunch of mole rats over there, and their burrow is bugged out. So I'm looking at them, I shoot it, and then he decides to burrow. I love this so much. And here it comes. And then it's a burrow vanishes. There's a frame where you can see it, and then it just appears out of the side of your vision with this like rah. I love that one so much. Sort of related, I guess, to some pathfinding issues, because the way that mole rat emerged from that burrow is completely messed up. First, we're going to see a Scorch that knows where Mandalore is. It's got its wall hacks activated, and it's following them through the wall. Then we have a bunch of mole people that know I'm here. I'm in danger, as you can see. I'm crouched, and I'm in danger, which means they know where I am, and for whatever reason, they will not enter this tent. So, I don't know if they're trying to intimidate me, or if maybe there's some story that happened inside this tent that makes them scared of it. Maybe they just really hate anything to do with camping, but they will just keep going around and around this tent. See, they know I'm here. They're looking at me, and now, oh no, he's seen us. Run away. And again, these other two mole people will just run right past the entrance, and they won't even consider coming in. And then I go out and fight them, I think, but I'm not going to show that. Somewhat in the same way is that these ghouls won't come into this corner of the room, which I found by accident as I was running away to try to heal. So they have me cornered. They could have killed me, but for whatever reason, there's this part of the room where they won't cross. And what kind of game would have zombies that can't cross parts of rooms? That would be terrible, right? There's no way that would be considered a really great game if there were just these arbitrary lines on the ground where zombies can't get you. So as you can see, there's going to be a bunch of them here, and I test it because I've noticed, and I will run into this corner, and then they're all like, oh, where did he go? He knows the rules, we can't get him. And they all leave. And I don't know if they're trying to path a different way or they're going inactive, but there's something about this corner that they just will not pass. I don't know. I have no idea. In the White Springs, there are some paintings on the walls that will vanish depending on the angle that you look at them. So as you can see, I'm moving back and forth here, and the paintings are peeling in and out of being visible as I'm moving around this room. So I'm testing this out to see if it happens with anything else in this area, and they're not bad paintings, but yeah, they vanish when I get a certain distance away, but it's not just distance, it's also angle. So as you can see, I'm way further away from it now, and I can still see it, whereas the problem was there when I was way closer on the other side. But then I noticed this one on the left has the same issue as I'm experimenting when the ones in the main hall, and then I go over and I look at those, and there's part of it that vanishes as you get close. And it's matched with the pace that you're moving to. It's really weird. Here's another one in a room on this wall. Depending on where you look at it, it's the angle here, not the distance. And this is my favorite one. So there's multiple ones that are showing up and vanishing as you're moving around. But there were 2 or 4, I can't remember if it's 2 or 4, we'll see in just a second, that no matter what angle I looked at, they wouldn't show up. So they're just appearing as you're going. How the hell does this happen? All right, so there's 4 here, but there's only 2 that are glitched out. So I'm trying to get these 2 to appear, and I can't make it happen. And then I just try something. I'm like, okay, what if I jump? Oh, just fantastic. Fantastic. Oh man, that's the word of the video, huh? Fantastic. That's great. Here is a glitch that happened in a power plant, I think, where my super sledge broke, and the super sledge damage went on my fists instead of the weapon, so it just transferred over. Now what was really weird is that my fist damage also went onto the next super sledge, so I'm going to hit this guy here, and it does next to nothing. It's doing no damage whatsoever, and this super sledge is a decent weapon. And it took me a little while to notice this because I moved on to a different super sledge after the first one broke, and because I always carry spares, and I was like, why am I doing no damage all of a sudden? and then I took it off, and then I'm hitting them with my fists, and there you go, it's doing super sledge damage. So yeah, so the damage value switched over. Now if I had been intelligent, I would have realized that this was a good thing, and I could have had unlimited super sledge damage on my fists for the rest of the game, or until I logged out. But then I decided to see if I could fix it, because as you can see, it's still broken with super sledges. So I dropped them, and now my fists are doing normal damage. So it makes me wonder if it was just an equipment error, that when I was using my fists, if the game thought I had the super sledge on and the damage values weren't reversed. It's just a visual glitch that was going on, that when I thought I was just using my fist, I actually was holding a super sledge according to the server, and it wasn't until I dropped them that it resolved itself. But who knows? Who knows? Now that we're around 2 hours into this and about to look at the final set of glitches, we're going to talk about something else instead. And these are things that I don't think are bugs, or they might not be bugs, but I still think are worth bringing up, and I would like to discuss them. And the first one is one of the simplest things in the game, and that is that your photo ID card that you take a picture for at the beginning of the game never updates its level. I don't know why they would put a level there if it wasn't going to update as the game went on. This could be seen as, oh, you were level 1 and you took the picture and that's what it put down, and that's what it set there for you. But that doesn't seem right to me. This seems like something that should be updating as load screens go on, but yet it's just stuck at level 1. So again, not sure if that's a glitch, but it is questionable. This is probably going to be the Bethesda's bug section where you really can't tell no matter what. Here I'm fighting a glowing ghoul that takes quite a few shots. Now in Fallout 4, you could use any weapon to blast off their legs. Shotguns were the best for it, and make them immobile so you could just shoot them really easily. And this is something that's another example of how combat is made significantly worse in 76, even though it's mostly the same system, because you can't do that in 76. You can't blast off limbs until an enemy is dead. So this tactic that you could use in Fallout 4 and teach yourself as a way to handle bullet sponge enemies, you just can't do in 76. It just makes the fighting a much lesser experience in all of these little ways. So this is when I first discovered the Enclave base, and I went in there hostile and tried to fight my way through. And you can't. These turrets are invincible. There's no way you can destroy them. And the robots spawn forever, and you can't loot them. You don't get any XP. And I don't know, I thought this was questionable. I think maybe they should have made it so they disabled your weapons when you go in there instead of wasting your time trying. It's weird though that the Enclave AI will speak to you as if you're still friendly throughout all of this. So no matter what, there's something going on here. You know, it's telling you to take your picture and approach the terminal so it can talk to you. Meanwhile, its robots and turrets are just going to town, just hammering you as hard as they possibly can. And there's no way that you can win because, like I said, they're invincible. There's no fighting your way out of this. Believe me, I tried. This next one is just funny. It's a note that you find, and it's supposed to lead you to go and find some treasure. But it uses just... like... I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing, but yeah, it just uses a method of just pulling the item that they want you to go and find and just taking that name without context. So here, I'll read it out for you. PD, I heard from a wanderer that there's a small family holed up in Watoga Municipal Center. They seemed friendly enough, she said, but unwilling to trade even though they had spare armor, like leather right arm. So this is obviously like a placeholder thing where, or a variable in for the note that can be anything that they want it to be, and it just takes the name of the item that they want to spawn there as a Radiant Quest style thing. But it's just so ridiculous when you read it out loud. Who writes out, yeah, they have the good stuff, like leather right arm? Like it's just stupid. It's just really, really stupid. This didn't get any refinement, I guess. They didn't go in and test it a little bit, but it's still funny, and I'm glad that it's there. It made me laugh when I found it. This one is one of the few stat checks that are in the game that just show up as a box that you're supposed to read and then hit OK, and it's just surrounded by enemies, and I can't remember what the resolution was here. I think you're just supposed to understand that it's a bomb because you have perception 2, like wow, congrats on putting 2 points into perception, here's your reward, you're so perceptive that you found this with your whole 2 stat points. Yeah, and then it explodes. So there was another guy here, so I don't know if he ruined my chance of disarming that bomb, but we'll never know now. Just such a weird way of doing it. Like, there was only one other stat check in the whole entire game, and it just shows up in just a text box like that. Like, how did that even make it in? Who decided to put that there? This one is just a brief look at this crash space station that I think is one of the most interesting locations in the whole game, and I just want to point out that there's nothing to do here. So, missed opportunity and maybe cut content or unfinished content. I have a feeling that there are a lot of unused assets in this game that are just sitting in the files that were meant to be implemented and they didn't have time. So just like a lot of the enemies you're not going to see much in the game, there's assets that you never see at all that they didn't have time to finish. So again, offline mode, patch it up and finish it. I think the game could be pretty good if you did that, Bethesda. Not that anyone from Bethesda is watching this, but I just want to repeat it anyway to make myself feel better. Poor crash space station. This one is another ridiculous note that someone scribbled on this piece of paper on top of the safe. So there's a key to the safe, and people were living up here, and they're about to be raided by super mutants. So I just want you to understand the thought process of this guy. Hey, super mutants are coming up the tower to kill us. Let me write this note. Hey, idiots, want to get into the safe? No problem. We threw the key off the balcony when you were coming up. Saw it land right on top of the shitter outside. Pretty sure you walking bricks can't read, so good luck, assholes. Who would write this? It's just for the player to go down and find the key. Who would do that? Who made this quest and thought that was reasonable? So here's another unreasonable quest that involves looting a locker at this location, and I was here for quite a while trying to find the locker that had a bunch of stuff in it that was worth looting, when all along I just had to look at this locker and take out this paintbrush, which would then trigger the item reward for the... What? There were multiple areas that I tried to do this earlier in the game, and I didn't realize that it was just a random locker that I had to pick up, so I missed the quest, so oh well. So this is a Bethesda's bug hardcore. So this quest is about guarding this robot as it sprays this special chemical onto the crops to see if it'll make them grow better. You're completing a task that was set up from before the war. It's Bethesda's bug because partway through the spray, it becomes fire. So the spray ignites and starts spraying fire all over these crops, and the robot seems to stand there and be like, yeah, this is fine. This is how it's supposed to be. And I have to wonder, is this supposed to be funny? Is this supposed to be, haha, the wacky robot is setting the field on fire, even though the fire isn't spreading at all, and no one's reacting to it at all? Or is this the spray of the chemical that they're testing glitching out and for whatever reason randomly turning on fire like the other glitched out fire that we saw earlier in the video? I have no idea, and I love that I have to wonder, and I love that the fire does no damage, which, you know, again, it's like, is it meant to be fire, or or is it just meant to be chemical? Just great. Here we go. Let's see it one more time. So big spray of chemicals, and then, oh, there it goes. It's like the chemical catches on fire afterwards. It's not like it's not like it becomes a flamethrower. It's like after a little while, the spray catches on fire on the crops itself. So maybe it's making the crops spontaneously combust. If it is, then maybe it's intentional. Maybe it's supposed to be like that. Oh, I think it was doing damage there. First time for everything for fire. The fireworks. This one is scary. I don't like this bug at all. So this is the setup for the second clip. So here you go. Evan Aji would like to join the team. Alright, so this is not a bug. This is not a glitch. I'm going to let this run because I think this one is going to be unbelievable. So we need to set this up for the next clip. So he just invited me to a group and I'm ignoring him completely. Just not even going to bother. So here I go. And I'm just going to walk around and try to clear these enemies at this airport so I can claim this workshop. And I'm sorry that this is going to be a little dull, but it's really important that that you see this. So Evan Aji is nearby, and I'm just ignoring him. I don't want to group with him at all. I'm thirsty now. There's the thirst meter. And we're just going to go on for just a little bit here. Maybe I'll speed it up, actually. I'll put up to ×2 speed. And then it pops up. You have declined the team invitation. So standard stuff. Now what you'll see here is that there's nothing else that shows up after you have declined the team invitation. Alright, so nothing else shows up. We'll leave it for a couple more seconds so you can see that. Nothing else shows up on the screen. I'm just attacking these super mutants. And then we skip to the next one. So someone else invited me to your group and I'm ignoring them, and we'll see it show up here. You have declined the team invitation. Now what's special about this one is after declining the team invitation, it adds the person without my consent onto my friends list. Friend added. So declining this team invitation made this guy add to my friends list. It's not that I'm added to his. 0 string 30 is added to my friends list after declining the team invite. I really don't like that. I don't like that people can force themselves onto my friends list by just sending out team invites. Very scary. I don't like it. This next one is a little hard to see. So you'll see in the capital letters on this note that there's a big space between the capital letters and the lowercase letters in some of the words. So only, volunteers, Dasa, Delbert, Kesha. Did anyone look at this before it went in? What's going on here? There's no way that's intentional. Here I'm about to call for one of those bugged out cargo bots to bring me supplies, and this one I just want to point out because the blood texture is just like straight out of GoldenEye 64. There's nothing else I want to say about that. I just wanted to show you that because it just looks so old. This one I'm unsure if it's a bug or not. It's some sparks that are flying in this, I think, a cranberry bog area here in the southeast part of the map. Is this supposed to be attached to one of these mutated plants, or is it meant to be hovering in the air like that? I don't know. This one is about the amount of quests that you have on the right-hand side of the screen. You can go into your Pip-Boy and you can deactivate quests, so that side of the screen is cleared up. But there's no way to deactivate them and still have them on the map, unfortunately, which would be the way that I would prefer to do it, so I can clear up my space on the screen but still have them when I open the map. But as you can see, about a quarter of the quests on there right now are from Mandalore G, and there is no way to get rid of those on your screen that we found while you're in a party. The only way that they vanish is if the person in your party does the same thing that you do and removes them from tracking in their Pip-Boy. So if everyone that you're grouped with decides that they don't care about having their quests run off the side of the screen, you're just shot out of luck, I guess. You're just going to have to live with it. I'm going to point out that there may be an option that I missed somewhere, but I couldn't find it, and I did look. But yeah, as you can see, I'm removing my quests right now, and they're going away, and Mandalore is telling me that they're vanishing from his screen, and I think they're flickering on my screen now with his quests as he is messing around with it. I have no idea why that quest area is so large on the map. That doesn't seem like it should be that way. Yeah, so you just have to live with having quests from people in your party. Yeah, he's removing them now if they decided they just don't want to do it. So once again, why was this a multiplayer game if it doesn't have the most basic multiplayer features? Like push to talk was added in later. How does a multiplayer game launch without push to talk? Or, like, everyone has an open microphone. Like what were they thinking, and were they thinking at all? I have no clue. This is an odd one because it should be apparent to anyone that listened to these holotape logs as they were putting them into the game and arranging them so that the audio file would play when you activated it. There are very long gaps between people speaking in these tapes that feels really awkward and feels really unintentional. Now, there were some that worked fine, but this one and a lot of the ones around the starting area had these really long pauses like this that I'm going to let play. And you can just hear for yourself before we move on to the next one.
The old ways are the good ways. I want you to... If I may interject, Sergeant, that'll be all.
These clips are just proving what I said earlier about legendary items always showing up with this big ceremonious presentation whenever you pick it up, even if you've picked it up multiple times. I don't think this happened in Fallout 4 because you got the same kind of thing in Fallout 4, so there's a flag on these items that isn't being ticked over when you pick them up, or maybe it's because it's multiplayer. They expect to have to do this whenever someone else picks an item up if they pick it up from the floor, if you drop it for them. So yeah, every single time you get to see this when you take it out of your inventory. This is a room full of radioactive waste that is causing radioactive mushrooms to grow around it, but doesn't do any radioactive damage to you. There's no radiation in this room. They forgot to put the radiation in here. And I would think that maybe that's an intentional kind of, maybe someone put it in there to fake someone out from not going into this cave. But the radioactive mushrooms growing around it makes me think that, no, it's meant to be radioactive and they just forgot to put it in. This one probably isn't a bug and is acceptable, but I just think it's funny that these mole rats are burrowing up onto this wooden kind of patio thing when there's no ground underneath it. This is suspended in the air. And they are still managing to tunnel their way up here and make a big clump of dirt as they do. But yeah, I just thought that was funny, and it was worth including real quick. there's this air underneath this thing below us right now. And the last one that we'll talk about in this Bethesda's bug list isn't a bug at all. It is the completely bonkers quest that ends the Responders line that involves going through a cave full of Scorched to finish Fire Breather training. So the Fire Breathers have taken over a fire station in the southern part of the map, and they are the Responders' fighting force. So they are taking people and training them in order to fight back against the Scorch. So the Responders had a lot of people on their side, and they wanted to train up a militia. And their training was to send groups of people into this burning, smoke-filled cave with dozens upon dozens of Scorched. And this was their first time fighting the Scorched, to go down into the depths of this hell, hit a button to prove that they got to the bottom, which makes even more Scorched appear as a, oh, you have to keep on your toes and you have to expect the unexpected trainees, to train them to go out and fight Scorched in the real world in better conditions than this training. Now, two things that are really funny about this is that there are a series of holotapes that you will find as you go down here that are like a horror movie of the trail that they've left behind. Like, oh, we're gonna get through this. For the Fire Breathers, this is our moment to shine, and we're gonna get through this. And oh no, Timmy's dead, and he will not be forgotten. And the whole time, it's like, this is training. This is their first encounter with the Scorch. This is what the Fire Breathers have set up to... Sorry, it's just so ridiculous. This is what the Fire Breathers have set up to recruit people to their cause. And yet, this is the drama that they're going through. And the second part, which I can't confirm because I couldn't find it, so maybe I made this up, so you might want to ignore this, but I'm pretty sure that I read this somewhere or it was in a holotape. No one ever successfully completed the training. Which makes sense considering that the corpses are still down there unless the Scorch Plague hit a critical mass when these Fire Breather trainees went down there. Or maybe these were one of the first ones that ever did it, and the higher-ups of the Fire Breathers were like, well, yep, this was too extreme, we need to dial it back a bit, and there's the guy who masterminded the whole thing is sitting across the room with his arms crossed like, well, I thought it was fine. Like, the game even warns you with some of its robots, this is going to be extreme, but don't worry, remember your training and you will come back alive. Yeah, it's beyond ridiculous that this was written in this way, and unless the game is in on the joke and I'm not picking up on it, which it might be, I don't know who thought this was a reasonable quest to put in the game, and a reasonable bit of world building, I guess, about the groups that lived in Appalachia after the war. They all die, all 4 of the trainees die, and you find all their holotape logs next to the button that you're supposed to push down there, and that's the training. And Mandalore and I had some choice things to say about that afterwards, after we were done with that quest.
Like, you're learning how to drive, so we're just gonna put you on the Formula 1 car.
Yep. Yeah.
You can't handle the most dangerous of driving conditions. You shouldn't have a license.
It's like the fucking Descent. Like, look at this shit. Like,
This is the fucking... It's Mayron's Dagon down there? What the fuck is this? You want to be a escort? You want to be one of the fire department people? Well, close shut the jaws of oblivion, you dense fucker. Just go in the Mayron's Dagon Tower. All of Cyrodiil's counting on you. I hate this. How is this the training?
but if the strike-through robots, strikebreaker robots were here, doesn't mean they've been here since the bombs fell? How...
Unless the post-apocalyptic people were mad their jobs were being replaced by the robots?
Well, we know that there were a lot of them
online?
because they were able to sacrifice them in their fucking fire breather assault course. So yeah, maybe they were just too. Maybe they had population problems.
There were too many people. There were far too many people after the apocalypse. We had an overpopulation issue. After the nuclear bombs fell, we realized there's too many people here. So we have to sacrifice some for our raging overpopulation. Oh good, there's a workshop quest. Exactly what I wanted.
We have 3 more sections to go through now, and the first is miscellaneous visual glitches, which we will see and I will try to speak about as we go through. So this made me think that my graphics card might be dying because this looks like textbook artifacting when your GPU is overheating, but this is the only time that I saw this happen on a Scorched. I think it happened in a nuke zone with an animal's arms getting really large, but I couldn't find that in my footage, and I think it was really hard to see because it was just bouncing all over the place. But I'll take another look and see if I can find it and add it to the section after I'm done recording. This one is a God Ray coming through a mountain, which many people have spoken about now, and it's being dubbed Todd Rays because they make no sense, and I thought I should include one in my video just for the sake of it. This is a river that is glitched out that you can see parts of it. The water wasn't put together properly. This is just out of alignment a little bit, and we'll see more sections of this river that have the same problem. I don't know if this part that's dry here is part of that. I'm going to say yes. That doesn't seem right to me. But yeah, so over here, that doesn't look right. You can see under the water, but that's probably acceptable. That's probably okay. And here there are seams in the water that haven't been aligned properly. And we'll see more of these as we go down. You're not supposed to see seams like that in water. That's not good. Not good at all. And then the river kind of just dries out a little bit, which is okay. Here we have power armor. This isn't worth going in here. It just looks funny. He's like, yeah, I did it. I did it. As he's falling, as he's caught between both of these power things. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was funny. Here you can see the sky indoors on this sort of chemical looking water here. Yep. Don't know what's happening there. And here the windows are changing lighting as you get close, kind of like those paintings that we saw earlier. As you get close and see at a different angle, the window will light up. And Mandalore could see this too, so this was baked into the game. It wasn't just on my end, and there was something similar that happened in the Rose the Raider area with the sky. So the sky is changing depending on where you are, and the light even starts shining brighter through the holes in the cloth that's draped over too. I didn't notice that when I first saw this. Yeah, those were all the miscellaneous visual bugs that I couldn't find a category to put in. And here we have some miscellaneous weird bugs that I also couldn't find a category to put in. And weird is definitely the best word for it because these first set that we're going to see. So as I pick this up, I'm going to lose a bunch of shotgun shells, 10mm rounds, and .308 rounds for picking up some wood. And you'll see this a bunch of times. I picked up a silt beam and lost some shotgun shells there as I'm fighting this Mothman. I'm going to use this computer terminal, and as I leave it, I'm going to lose some shotgun shells. I have no clue. Here I mine this crystal outcropping, and I lose a 45 round. So, yep. And similarly, I loot this iron ore, and I lose a 38 round. So, sometimes when you're looting things, you will lose things. And again, sorry to sound like a broken record, I wonder how much of this stuff I missed as I was playing, because it's kind of hard to catch that, whether or not you're losing ammo when you're picking things up and you don't expect to lose ammo. This is a glitch that I mentioned way back early on in the video where you can get stuck on crafting stations. I'm done cooking now and I would like to leave and it won't let me, so when I tab out and I hit space to exit, it just immediately puts me back into crafting. And I think that's what, 3 times now? 3 or 4 times? And I finally get out of it and now I'm free. And now we're moving on to the next one where it happens again with a different crafting station. So I'm crafting and I decide, hey, I actually don't want to craft, so I'll leave it. Nope, you're stuck on it. No, I really don't want to craft, thank you. No, you have to do crafting. You're ours, we've got you forever. And then I get out of it. These next 2 clips are some cows that can walk on water. And when I get close to them, they're like, oh shit, he's noticed, quickly fall in the water. Yeah, just funny that I wanted to show. This one happened more often as the game went on. When I would load in for the first time, it would say that my level is level 1 at the bottom of the screen. It was there for just a second, and then I look at my level in the Pip-Boy, and I'm actually level 51 or level 60 or whatever I actually was. But it gets worse because as I run up to an enemy that's nearby here, so just to go through it again, I started out at level 1, then it shows my actual level in the Pip-Boy, but it didn't show what my XP was. So then I will go over here and I will kill a Scorched guy. And after I do that, then it resets my XP to show what I actually am. So there's, I think, 3 layers of glitches there. This one is a little hard to see, so you want to keep your eyes on the compass in the bottom of the screen. So I'm approaching this location on the map, and occasionally it will leave the compass, so it won't be there. So as you can see, it's going to vanish in just a second here. It's the circle with the tear through it. It's a Scorched Beast nest. Yep, it's gone. It's not there anymore. And then it's going to come back as I get closer to it again, and then it vanishes again. So this makes me wonder if there are some locations on the map that I'm supposed to get to, but they don't show up on the compass when I'm nearby. There were some locations I found that I felt needed their own location on the map, but I was surprised that they weren't. There was a Stonehenge monument made out of wrecked cars in the northern part of the map that I was surprised didn't have a location tied to it. So I wonder if there are some missing, and I also wonder if there are some locations that I never found because, for whatever reason, they do have a location tied to it, but they weren't showing on the map when I was close. These kind of glitches are really bad for that because they make you wonder what else is going on, and it's not a good thing to hone in on one mistake. Oh, one mistake proves that the whole thing is busted. It's sort of like if you can prove someone wrong on one thing, that now you can sit back and think, well, if I prove you wrong on one thing, then everything you say is suspect. That's not a good way of thinking about things, but I think it's valid here considering just how glitchy the rest of the game is. And it's something that I do wonder about now, how many missing locations there are. This one is one of my favorites. I think it's in my top 5. This is a Deathclaw that has the wrong name. It is actually a traveling merchant. Just lovely. This is one of my favorite ones. I wonder what the story is here. Is it supposed to be a Deathclaw? Is it supposed to be a merchant? I have no clue, but I love it. I just love the idea of a traveling Deathclaw merchant too. I hope that is in a game later on. I don't care if it doesn't make sense. Just have a sentient, friendly Deathclaw that is a traveling merchant and can't speak and is just like, scream, buy my wares, you know what I mean? Like, that would be great. That would be fantastic. And this is the worst version of the inactive Scorched that I mentioned a while ago. So this Scorched knows I'm here and is responding to when I'm moving, will follow me, has both arms up in the air like she just don't care. Again, maybe there's some music that only enemies can hear in this game. This Scorch is interrupting our date, so I go over there and heal up a little bit as I do with my vampiric super sledge that I should probably have named Vera or something. So I kill these Scorched and then I go back and resume my date with this special Scorched over here. I'm healing up a little bit because I don't know what's going to happen when I get close to her. I was right to do that because when I do get close, she's able to attack, but she's stuck in place. Now it looks like she's locked into falling, but she's still able to attack. And yeah, compared to the one that we saw earlier with her stuck in a building and she would just kind of awkwardly toothy smile at me, but not react in any other way, this one makes things more difficult to judge because she clearly is capable of knowing I'm here and wants to attack, but something has locked her in place. I wonder if this is a mix of all the different kind of flavors of enemy glitches that we've seen in the game so far. There's a mix of can't move, can't react, is invisible, stuck in an animation, you know what I mean? And enemies will be glitched out in one of those ways, or two, or sometimes all four. And this is just one of the rarest combinations of those glitches, that it can't move, is stuck in animation, but can still attack and is still visible. I have to wonder about that, and here I go swinging, bringing my life back again before I go in for the kill and put her out of her misery. This is one of, I think, 8 glitches that I saw when I went back into the game after the patch. There is a bunch of shit on the horizon here. Here's a Vertibot that is in the road, and then yep, okay. And then there's another piece that spawns, and then it moves again, all over the place here. I think this is baked into the map too. I don't think this is something that someone killed. I think this is part of the terrain. And this is supposed to be here. Oh no, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not, because I could loot it. Alright, I think I'm wrong there. Here is another cargo bot glitch with another floating box in the sky. Government aid drop, there it is. To see us off at the end of this list here. You know, we only have 2 left. here is Mandalore, who is heavily damaged, and despite having stim packs, the game won't let me use them on him. Cannot heal him and bring him back to life. He's trying real hard to get my attention. It won't let me heal him, so he dies, and he has to come back to life. Considering that you can just respawn anywhere nearby, rezzing people like that is probably a waste of stim packs, to be honest. So it's probably not worth it. It's still weird that it wouldn't let me use them though. And this is the last one in this section where I level up, and I think I'm level 20 or so, and it shows me this screen where you have reached level 5, and it's explaining combat with other players. Yeah, and like I said, I'm level 20 or so, and I've seen this screen before, but it's showing up again, so hooray. After all that, we're finally at the last section, which is a collection of bugged out rooms that haven't been assembled properly. Now, so far you've seen missing furniture in these rooms, but we're going to be looking at something specific instead here, which are rooms that haven't been assembled on a more fundamental level of that, and that is the walls, the floors, and the ceiling. So when rooms and buildings are assembled in the game, they're not plopped down as a whole thing already. They're made up of pieces. They can be put together, and when I've messed around and stuff with Unity, they're usually put together in prefabs, and I don't know if Fallout 76's system is still in the prefab system. I should probably go over and check the mod tools in Fallout 4, because I think I'll be following from the same information there, but this video has already taken up too much time. So I'm going to assume that you can combine a bunch of different parts of buildings into prefabs and put them down. But what you're seeing here are seams in the different parts of the buildings that haven't been arranged properly. So there are minuscule gaps between these sections of the walls and the roof and the floors in some cases. And because these gaps are here, I believe it's completely screwing up the lighting. And for two reasons. It's letting light in from the outside where it shouldn't be. And you can see this in almost any room that you go in, and it's unusually dark and it looks kind of washed out. Like it's like there's been a bunch of like polluted water has been washed through the area and has left like this black film over everything, and it doesn't look normal until you use your Pip-Boy light. So it's letting in light sources from the outside because there are gaps in the wall and it hasn't been properly arranged. But I think it also believes that these indoor sections are part of the outside environment because they aren't sealed in properly. So it hasn't been able to wrap these areas into an interior location. So you'll go from places that have had that done to them, and then you go to these ones, and the game thinks these are outside, which is why you will have rain coming through the ceiling and light coming through the gaps, and also the rooms being really, really dark because it's expecting to have outdoor lighting from the outdoor lighting sources, but that's still being blocked from most of the walls, and it's only just creeping in some of the gaps in the walls here. And we're just going to see a lot of examples of this because I think you guys get it already, and my speculation might be way off here. And like I said, I really should go into Fallout 4's mod tools and see if I can recreate this problem for myself, because it might be unique to 76 and I might be wrong. So as always, I'm not a game designer, and you shouldn't take my words as more important than just me thinking aloud as we're looking at this together. But it is consistent enough that I do feel like I should wonder and see if I can get close to right with my amateur theory. So here you can see the light kind of creeping through the gap in the ceiling here. And I think I'm close to correct with how this works. But anyway, like I was saying, I'm going to let this run for a while. We're only about halfway done now with these examples because I just want to prove how many of these glitched out buildings there are in this game and how poorly this was and how widespread it was throughout it. This is the worst room, I think. You can see so many gaps between the pieces. And there's a corner piece there that has the roof part of that section. And yeah, I think this one I could see outside through the gaps. Some of the gaps were so large that I could see the terrain outside when I got close to them. And I could even go outside and look in, but it was a lot harder to find the seams on the outside as it was on the inside because there's no light coming from the inside. so they're really easy to see. I wonder if it was dark here, if I waited here until nighttime, if it would be a lot harder to see these seams. Probably, I think. I want to say that there were at least 100 of these rooms, and I'm going to show, I think, about 30 of them. But just to be safe, let's be conservative about my guess here and say that there were 50 instead of 100, because I don't want it. Yeah, there you go. I can see through the wall there, and I can see some of the foliage outside. Yeah, so let's say there are about 50 of these rooms spread out across the map on the outside world. Wow, that looks even worse there when you're getting close. Like the light is so bright when it's coming through. Yeah, so about 50. Sometimes it presented itself like this, where objects in the room were dark. And here we have, there's no seam here at all, so I don't know where this is coming from. Maybe there is one, I just can't see it. So there's just light in the hallway. And yeah, this is way too dark compared to the other parts of this house. And again, you can see the seams. It became a game that whenever I went into a room that looked bad, I would look around for the seams. There was one on the left there, and mostly I could find them. This isn't a problem. This is just with a seam. This is just part of the roof isn't aligned properly. That one probably isn't worth looking at, but there it is. Yep, just a really, really dark room. Lots of flickering going on in here. Yeah, look at it on the wall there. Amazing. Amazing. So my theory here is that no one tested these, that these rooms were put together and they didn't have time to look at them, or they didn't have time to fix them after they looked at them, because this shouldn't take too long to fix. I got some criticism on the last video saying that I didn't know what I was talking about because yeah, look at the light streaming through these non-existent windows over here. That's amazing. That might be a different bug. That might be that windows are meant to be here, but maybe not. I don't know. I have no idea. That one's amazing. Anyway, like I was saying, I got some criticism on the last video saying that I didn't know what I was talking about because I suggested that Bethesda could change the values on bobbleheads and skill magazines and put more of them around the world within just a couple hours of development. And some people said I had no idea what I was talking about, that's a big project. But I think that they're forgetting that Bethesda has well over 100 people on their team that could work together to make that happen. And also that they are very familiar with this engine, and that's pretty much what modders do all the time with their mod tools. So unless there's something unique to 76 that makes it highly difficult to make changes to the map that they have, maybe it takes a long time to load up the map before they are able to put any changes in. This one's really bad. The lighting is completely messed up on the water here. We'll see this when we get down. But anyway, yeah, like unless there are some problems with that, like it takes a long time to get the whole map loaded to make these changes. Small changes like this shouldn't take long at all, especially considering what modders can do, and they're usually working alone. They don't have the big familiar team of Bethesda. Yeah, I'm curious why exactly these haven't been fixed yet, considering that they should be quick fixes. You know, just go in and just tweak the positions of these buildings a little bit and these parts of these buildings to make it so the light isn't creeping in. So either it is a lot more difficult because of the online nature of 76, which makes me wonder how they've changed anything at all, right? What are they doing if that's the case? Or they just don't have the time or the resources, or management just doesn't care. This is in the Rose de Raider area, and this is technically inside. It's on an inside map. You can't get out of here. So I think that's why the lighting is okay despite all these broken seams. And yeah, once you notice this, it really is rampant all over the entire game. Apologies for rambling a bit in this section. Probably not the most interesting part, but that's why I left it at the end, because it's interesting to me, and this is some of the best proof that I think there is about how rushed and unfinished this game is. But I do understand that it's going to be like the Odyssey video, where you're showing a lot of proof and a lot of people aren't really interested in seeing the proof. They just want to know opinions on what the game is like and more interesting information instead of the evidence. So this is a double bug. There's a seam and also light coming through the wall that shouldn't be there. And this is, I think, part of the Responders fire breather space that we were just speaking about. And yeah, the ceiling is bugged and the light on the floor, just everywhere. I don't even think there was one large building in the entire game that didn't have this problem somewhere. which makes me wonder if it isn't an issue of when they made the buildings that they didn't arrange them properly. You know, they left these little gaps. But instead, I wonder if there's some problem with how they made the pieces of these buildings, that it was broken on that level, because it really is everywhere. It's not user error when it comes to arranging them, it's just something that happened before that. I think there are only like 6 or 7 left, and they're quick clips. More of the walls and the ceiling. This isn't a basement too, that's weird. Wonder if the top one's broken up. And here's a wall that, brick wall that isn't put together properly. And here's a dark bathroom with light shining through a non-existent gap in the wall. It's a holy urinal there. And I go into the bathroom next to it, and it's the same thing. This is the shiny bathroom stall here for whatever reason. And I think this is a cabin that has a really tall roof, or a really high roof. Sorry, a really high ceiling, not a roof. And it's broken all along this side. The whole side is busted there. Here's some lighting that is only showing up as I get close there, and the light moves. Yeah, that's probably an unrelated issue. Don't know what's causing that. That's really strange. And here's another room that's completely busted with on the floor this time. I think on the floor was rarer than the ceiling, but I wonder if I got on top of some of those ceilings in the game. If I went on the roof, there would be gaps there too that I could see. And there's another shot of the pixelated lighting in the water in this room, which is very weird. Very, very weird. And that's it. That's all the bugged lighting room examples that we have, which leaves us with the final glitch that I've been looking forward to ending this video on for weeks now. I gotta tell you, it's a long time coming, and I set it up even in the first video. It's why I've been emphasizing that I've played Fallout 76 for almost 100 hours. It's always been almost and 100 hours. You know, that's a round number, a specific number, and the reason for that is almost like poetry. When I was done playing the game, poetry. When I was done playing the game, I did my test where I sat outside Vault 76 and I let my hunger and thirst meters go all the way down to 0 because I was curious to see what would happen if they got low enough. Like, would the game kill me if I ran out of food and water? And when I respawned after dying from hunger and thirst, would it refill those meters for me? Like, what would happen? And after doing this experiment, I learned that you get down to 5% of your total HP, and then the game stops dealing damage to you through dehydration and hunger. So after doing that, I ran into the forest, and I tried to do a couple of other glitches that I heard about in the game. And as I'm doing that, next to my camp, I get an achievement. And the achievement I get is 76 out of 76. You have played Fallout 76 for 76 hours. And I thought, wow, that's great. That's amazing timing, you know? Like I said, it's poetic. I'm done with the game. I'm about to turn it off. I was minutes away from turning it off and you know, concluding my time spent with the game for the video. And 76 out of 76, that's going to be a great way to end the video and show that I played it for quite a long time. Now, some of you may be thinking, Joe, 76 hours is not almost 100. That's pretty far off 100, actually. You know, it's closer to 75. You should have said 75 hours instead of 100 hours. And that's because it was a glitch. It wasn't 76 hours. So the final glitch that I would like to show you is that Fallout 76 can't count. It can't tell time, because when I added up all of my footage spent with the game, all of my recorded footage, I had actually played the game for 91 hours. So it lost track